Swift is Apple's primary programming language for building apps across all Apple platforms. It's open source, strongly typed, and designed to be fast and expressive, combining the safety features of modern languages like Rust or Kotlin with a syntax that many developers find clean and readable. If you're writing anything new on Apple platforms, Swift is the language. It compiles down to native machine code and interoperates with Objective-C, which means you can use any existing Apple SDK from Swift without friction. Used across every application category, mobile apps, desktop apps, system frameworks, and server-side Swift, it's the single most important technology to learn first. Foundation is the base layer that virtually every Apple app builds on. It provides the essential data types, strings, numbers, dates, URLs, collections, plus operating system services like File I/O, networking, serialization, and localization. Think of it as the standard library that every other framework depends on. Foundation is bridged seamlessly from Objective-C, so you'll see it referenced across decades of Apple documentation. Nearly every other framework in this video depends on Foundation at some level. If Swift is the language, Foundation is the runtime environment your code lives in. Swift UI is Apple's modern declarative UI framework for building user interfaces across iOS, iPad OS, Mac OS, Watch OS, TV OS, and Vision OS, all from a single codebase. Rather than constructing view hierarchies imperatively, you describe what the UI should look like for a given state, and Swift UI handles the rendering and updates. It integrates with Combine and Swift's observation framework for reactive data binding, and it produces platform-native controls automatically on each OS. If you're starting a new app today and want maximum code reuse across Apple platforms, Swift UI is the starting point. Used everywhere from simple utilities to complex productivity apps. UIKit is Apple's imperative UI framework for iOS, iPad OS, and TV OS, the framework that powered every iPhone app from the App Store's launch in 2008 until Swift UI arrived in 2019. UIKit gives you fine-grained control over every view, gesture, animation, and layout. It's battle-tested, extremely well-documented, and the right choice when you need precise control over behavior that Swift UI doesn't yet support, or when you're extending an existing codebase. Most production apps today are still UIKit-based or use UIKit alongside Swift UI. Understanding UIKit gives you access to the deepest archive of iOS development knowledge on the internet. AppKit is the UIKit equivalent for Mac OS. It's the native UI framework for building Mac applications, windows, menus, toolbars, panels, and the full Mac OS windowing environment. AppKit predates UIKit by many years and reflects the distinct conventions of the Mac desktop experience: multi-window apps, resizable panels, menu-driven navigation, and mouse and keyboard interaction. If you're targeting Mac natively, not via Catalyst, you'll be working with AppKit. Swift UI wraps AppKit under the hood on Mac OS, so many Swift UI components map directly to AppKit controls. WatchKit is the framework for building Watch OS apps that rely on the app delegate model, handling background tasks, notifications, and Siri interactions on Apple Watch. It's the older of the two Watch OS development models. For new Watch app development, Apple now recommends the newer Swift UI-based approach using the Watch OS apps target, but WatchKit remains relevant for maintaining existing Watch extensions and for background task handling, used for health monitoring apps, fitness trackers, and notifications-first Watch experiences. The Watch OS apps framework represents Apple's current recommended approach to building Apple Watch apps, using Swift UI as the UI layer, with native Watch complications built using WidgetKit and notifications handled via user notifications. This model replaces the older WatchKit extension architecture with something more integrated and performant. If you're building a new Watch app today, this is the path: Swift UI for the interface, WidgetKit for complications, and Watch OS APIs for health and sensor data. Common use cases include fitness tracking, health monitoring, and quick glance information surfaces. Vision OS is Apple's platform SDK for building apps and experiences on Apple Vision Pro, the company's spatial computing headset. It extends Swift UI and RealityKit to support a three-dimensional space where apps live as floating windows and immersive environments. You can build apps that look like conventional 2D windows floating in space, or fully immersive 3D experiences that replace the user's surroundings. Vision OS builds on existing iOS and Mac OS concepts, so many Swift UI and UIKit patterns transfer over, but adds entirely new paradigms for depth, interaction via eye tracking and hand gestures, and spatial audio. This is early stage but foundational for the spatial computing era. Mac Catalyst lets you bring an existing iPad app to Mac OS with minimal code changes. It translates UIKit and Swift UI iPad interfaces into native-feeling Mac windows, adds Mac-specific features like menu bar integration, and handles the differences between touch and mouse input automatically. It's not a full port, It's a compatibility layer, so it works best for apps that don't rely heavily on iOS-only hardware. Used by developers who want Mac coverage without rewriting their app from scratch in AppKit. Good for productivity apps, utilities, and content viewers. Core Foundation is the low-level C-based framework that Foundation is built on. It provides primitive types, strings, arrays, dictionaries, data, numbers, all defined in C as opaque reference types. In modern Swift development, you almost never use Core Foundation directly, but you'll encounter it when working with certain system APIs that predate Foundation's Swift bridging, or when writing performance-critical C interop code. It's fully toll-free bridged with Foundation, meaning Core Foundation types and Foundation types can be cast back and forth without copying. Context: legacy APIs, C interop, performance-sensitive system code. The Objective-C runtime is the dynamic system that powers Objective-C, and by extension, much of Apple's own system software. It provides message passing, dynamic method resolution, introspection, and the ability to swap method implementations at runtime, a technique known as method swizzling. In pure Swift development, you rarely touch this directly, but it's essential to understand when debugging legacy code, working with third-party libraries built in Objective-C, or using runtime-dependent features like KVO. Understanding the Objective-C runtime explains why many Apple APIs behave the way they do under the hood. Observation is a Swift framework that provides a macro-based system for making model objects automatically notify their observers when properties change. It's the modern replacement for the combine based at published pattern and object will change, offering better performance and simpler syntax. A class marked at observable automatically tracks which properties are read by which views, and triggers only the updates that are needed. Swift UI integrates directly with observation. When you use an observable model in a Swift UI view, the view automatically re-renders when the relevant properties change. Core to any modern Swift UI data architecture. Combine is Apple's framework for reactive programming, processing sequences of values over time using a declarative, composable pipeline of operators. Think of it as a first-party alternative to Rx Swift or ReactiveX. You define publishers that emit values, chain operators to transform or filter those values, and attach subscribers that act on the result. Combine powers a lot of Swift UI's internals and is used for network request chains, user input debouncing, and state management. In newer code, you'll often see Swift concurrency, async/await, preferred for one-shot async work, but Combine remains the right tool for continuous event streams. Swift Data is Apple's modern declarative persistence framework, introduced in 2023. You define your data model using Swift macros, mark a class at model, describe relationships, and Swift Data handles the database schema, migrations, and fetch queries automatically. It's built on core data under the hood, but exposes a dramatically simpler API surface. Swift Data integrates with Swift UI. You can fetch and observe data directly in views using @query, and it can sync to iCloud via CloudKit. If you're starting a new app that needs local data persistence, Swift Data is the recommended starting point over core data. ActivityKit powers live activities on iOS and iPad OS, the persistent, glanceable updates that appear on the lock screen and in the dynamic island on newer iPhones. A live activity lets your app surface real-time data, a sports score, a delivery status, a workout timer, without requiring the user to open the app. Live activities are defined using Swift UI and update via push notifications or direct updates from your app. They also appear on Apple Watch on Watch OS 11 and later, used in sports, delivery, ride-sharing, fitness, and event tracking apps. AlarmKit lets you schedule prominent, time-sensitive alarms and countdowns in your app, alarms that appear and behave like the system clock app's alarms, including ringing through silent mode and do not disturb. This is distinct from local notifications, which can be silenced. AlarmKit is designed for use cases where the alert truly cannot be missed. Medication reminders, cooking timers, wake-up alarms. Requires explicit user permission. Used in productivity, health, cooking, and time management apps. App clips are lightweight, instantly launchable versions of your full app, designed to be triggered by NFC tags, QR codes, app clip codes, Safari, Maps, or messages, and used for a specific in-the-moment task without requiring a full app install. The app clip binary is capped at a small size to ensure fast loading. Common use cases include ordering food at a restaurant, renting a bike, or trying a game demo. The app clip shares code with the main app target and can prompt the user to download the full app afterward. App Data Transfer provides APIs for downloading App Store information and app install activity about your app. It's an analytics and attribution tool that lets you understand where your installs are coming from and how users are engaging, surfacing data that Apple collects about your app's presence in the store. Primarily used by developers and marketers tracking install sources, update rates, and engagement metrics at the app portfolio level. Account data transfer enables downloading App Store information, app install activity, and push notification activity on behalf of users of your app. This is specifically designed for scenarios where you need to export user-linked data for compliance or data portability purposes, enabling users to retrieve their own activity data from Apple's systems related to your app, primarily relevant for enterprise apps and privacy compliance workflows. Bundle resources covers the system for packaging and accessing resources, images, strings, data files, configuration lists, and other assets inside an app, framework, or plugin bundle. Every shipped Apple app is a bundle, a directory structure that the OS treats as a single file. Understanding bundles is fundamental for localization, using strings files, asset catalogs for images at different resolutions, and packaging custom fonts or data files that your app reads at runtime, used in every app. Distributed is a Swift framework for building distributed systems code that runs across multiple processes or devices, communicating via remote procedure calls. It pairs with Swift's actor model and provides distributed actors, actors whose methods can be called from another process or machine as naturally as calling a local method. The framework handles serialization, transport, and error propagation, useful for client-server coordination, multi-process Mac OS apps, and any scenario where you want location-transparent communication between Swift code running in different places. Energy Kit provides a grid forecast API that tells your app when the electrical grid in the user's region is likely to be running on cleaner, lower carbon energy. Apps can use this signal to schedule energy-intensive tasks like large downloads, video processing, or device charging during green energy windows, helping users reduce their carbon footprint. A first-party tool for sustainable computing, used in apps that perform background energy-intensive work and want to contribute to environmental goals. Foundation Models provides access to the on-device Apple Intelligence language model, a model that specializes in language understanding, structured output generation, and tool calling. Unlike cloud-based LLM APIs, Foundation Models runs entirely on the device, preserving privacy and functioning offline. You can use it to build features like intelligent text summarization, structured data extraction from prose, or local AI-powered search, all without sending user data to a server. This is Apple's first-party on-device AI framework, introduced as part of Apple Intelligence in 2024, runs on Apple Silicon devices with sufficient memory. GeoToolbox provides APIs for determining place descriptor information from map coordinates, essentially reverse geocoding at a framework level. Given a latitude and longitude, GeoToolbox can tell you what kind of place is there: a city, a neighborhood, a country. It works on device without requiring a network request for basic operations, useful for location-aware apps that need to describe where the user is without making a full geocoding round-trip to a server. HVF stands for Hierarchical Variable Font. This framework provides low-level APIs for rendering HVF glyph outlines, a specialized tool for font editors and related developer utilities that need to work directly with variable font internals. It's not a general-purpose text rendering framework. It's a narrow tool for developers building font editing or inspection software, used in typography tools and font development applications. Managed App provides APIs for customizing your app for enterprise-managed deployments. In a managed environment, where an organization's IT team controls devices via mobile device management, MDM, Managed App lets the MDM system inject configuration data into your app securely, without the user having to type in server addresses, credentials, or organizational settings. It supports providing features that rely on secure access to secrets and organizational configuration, used in enterprise productivity apps, corporate VPN clients, and business-specific tools. PaperKit adds drawing, shape annotation, and markup capabilities to your app, the same kind of markup system you see in Apple's own apps like Mail and Photos. It provides a consistent, familiar interface for users to annotate documents, add drawings, and use shapes. PaperKit is distinct from PencilKit, which is focused on freehand drawing. PaperKit is more about structured annotation, used in document review, note-taking, and collaboration apps. Permission Kit provides APIs for creating communication experiences between a child and their parent or guardian within apps. It integrates with Apple's screen time and family sharing infrastructure to enable parental approval flows, for example, requesting permission to message someone new or to enable a feature. Designed for apps that serve younger users and need built-in parental controls, used in children's communication apps and family-oriented social experiences. Regex Builder is a Swift DSL, domain-specific language, for constructing regular expressions using Swift's type system rather than string-based regex syntax. Instead of writing a regex string that's cryptic and error-prone, you compose a regex by calling Swift functions and using Swift types, getting compile time checking and better readability. It integrates with the Swift standard library's regex type, used anytime your app needs to search, match, or replace patterns in text, from input validation to log parsing to data extraction. Relevance Kit provides on-device intelligence APIs that help increase your widget's visibility on Apple Watch. You can supply contextual clues, like the time of day, the user's location, or recent activity, that the system uses to decide when to surface your widget on the watch face. It's a signal supply framework rather than an ML framework. You tell the system what's relevant about your app's current context, and the system uses that to promote your widget at the right moment. Used in widget and complication development for Watch OS. Symbols provides APIs for applying universal animations to SF symbol-based images. SF Symbols is Apple's icon library of over 5,000 symbols designed to match the system font in weight and scale. The Symbols framework lets you animate these icons, bouncing, pulsing, replacing, appearing, using a consistent animation vocabulary that works across Swift UI, UIKit, and AppKit, used in any app that wants polished, animated iconography without custom-designed assets. Translation UI Provider enables your app to provide UI for translating text that users select. It's the translation framework's extension point. It integrates with the system's translation infrastructure to present a translation interface inside your app, related to the translation framework in app services, but focused on the UI presentation layer. Used in reading, browsing, and content consumption apps where users frequently encounter foreign language text. TVML, Apple TV Markup Language, is an XML-based markup language for building individual pages in client-server TV OS apps. Rather than shipping a native binary that contains all your UI, a TVML app fetches XML templates from a server and renders them natively on Apple TV. It provides a set of pre-built templates for catalogs, detail pages, menus, and search results. TVML is part of the older TVML Kit.js architecture. For new TV OS development, Apple now recommends Swift UI, but TVML remains in use for media streaming apps with large content libraries that need server-driven UI. TVML Kit is the native framework that bridges TVML markup and JavaScript into a TV OS binary app. It provides the rendering engine that downloads TVML templates and JavaScript from a server, evaluates the JavaScript, and renders the resulting UI natively. TVML Kit is the runtime that makes the client-server TV OS app model work. Works together with TVML Kit.js, used in streaming video apps and content catalogs on Apple TV. TVML Kit.js is the JavaScript API layer for TV OS client-server apps. It defines the JavaScript interfaces that run inside a TVML Kit app, event handlers, navigation, data fetching, and app lifecycle. If you're building a TVML-based Apple TV app, TVML Kit.js is how your JavaScript controls the UI, used in conjunction with TVML and TVML Kit. As noted, new development should favor Swift UI, but this stack remains in use in production streaming apps. TVUI Kit provides UI Kit-style components specifically designed for Apple TV's 10-foot interface. It extends UI Kit with TV-specific controls like the card view, lockup views, and caption button, controls that are designed for display on a large screen, navigated with a remote, and viewed from across the room. TVUI Kit fills in the gap between generic UI Kit components and the TV-specific design language, used alongside UI Kit in native TV OS app development. Visual Intelligence enables your app's content to appear in search results surfaced by the system's visual intelligence features, such as when a user points the camera at something, and the system identifies it and suggests relevant actions. By registering content and intents through visual intelligence, your app can appear as a result when the system detects a relevant subject in the viewfinder. Used in shopping, identification, and content discovery apps. Wi-Fi Aware enables secure pairing and peer-to-peer connections between Apple devices over a direct Wi-Fi link, without going through a router or internet connection. It's designed for low latency, high bandwidth communication between nearby devices, useful for local multiplayer gaming, direct file transfer, or connecting to nearby accessories. Distinct from multi-peer connectivity, which abstracts over both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Wi-Fi Aware is specifically for high-throughput Wi-Fi peer connections, used in gaming, file sharing, and accessory communication apps. Accessory Notifications is a beta framework that enables accessories, custom hardware you develop, to receive forwarded iOS system notifications. When a user receives a notification on their iPhone, your accessory can receive a forwarded copy of that notification, enabling you to build accessories that display or respond to iOS alerts. This is part of Apple's ecosystem for third-party connected accessories. Beta as of the last documentation update. Accessory Live Activities is a beta companion to ActivityKit, enabling your custom hardware accessories to receive and display forwarded live activity updates from iPhone. If a user has a live activity running, like a sports score or delivery tracker, your accessory can display that data in real time. Designed for third-party display accessories and embedded devices in the Apple ecosystem. Beta as of the last documentation update. Declared age range lets your app ask users to share their age range, not their exact birth date, so you can provide age-appropriate experiences. It integrates with Apple's privacy-preserving identity infrastructure, allowing users to share a minimal fact, like "I'm over 18" or "I'm between 13 and 17", without exposing their actual date of birth. Used in apps that need to comply with child safety regulations or provide different content tiers based on age. The App License Delivery SDK is part of Apple's alternative app distribution framework for iOS in regions like the EU. It enables alternative app marketplace operators to securely vend installation licenses from their web servers, the cryptographic mechanism that authorizes an alternative marketplace app to be installed on an iOS device. This is infrastructure for marketplace operators, not for individual app developers, used by organizations operating alternative app distribution platforms. Accounts gives your app access to the user's registered external accounts, historically social network accounts stored in system preferences. Users can grant your app access to their account credentials without having to type a password into your app. This framework is older and primarily relevant for legacy codebases that integrated with services like Twitter before those services moved to OAuth flows in browsers. Modern authentication typically uses authentication services instead. Ad Attribution Kit is Apple's framework for measuring and attributing in-app ad performance across both the App Store and alternative app marketplaces. It succeeds SK Ad Network for this measurement role, enabling advertisers and developers to understand which ad campaigns drove installs and actions without exposing individual user identity. It processes PostSpecs, anonymized attribution signals, from the system to your server, used in apps that monetize through advertising or need to measure marketing campaign effectiveness. AddressBook is the legacy framework, now deprecated in favor of Contacts, for accessing the system-wide contacts database on iOS. It was the original Contacts API, using a C-based interface that predates the Contacts framework's cleaner object-oriented design. You'll encounter AddressBook in older codebases, particularly those that predate iOS 9. For new development, use the Contacts framework, used historically in messaging, email, and social app. AddressBook UI is the companion framework to AddressBook, providing pre-built UI controllers for browsing and picking contacts on iOS. Like AddressBook itself, it's been superseded by the Contacts UI framework, relevant only in legacy codebases. For new apps, use Contacts UI. Ad Services provides the API for attributing app downloads that originated from Apple Search Ads campaigns run on the App Store. When a user taps an Apple Search Ads ad and downloads your app, Ad Services lets your app retrieve an attribution token that you can send to Apple's servers to confirm the install came from your campaign. Simple, privacy-preserving, and first-party. Used by any app with an Apple Search Ads campaign. Ad Support provides access to the advertising identifier, a per-device resettable UUID that ad networks use to track user behavior across apps for targeted advertising. Since iOS 14.5, accessing the advertising identifier requires the user's explicit permission via app tracking transparency. If permission is denied, the identifier returns all zeros. Ad Support is primarily used by ad networks and measurement SDKs. Most developers integrate it indirectly through third-party advertising SDKs rather than directly. The Advanced Commerce API extends StoreKit's in-app purchase capabilities for apps with exceptionally large catalogs. Think apps with millions of user-specific one-time purchases, like professional stock photo libraries or complex B2B software licensing. It allows customized purchase flows for catalogs that are too large to define as individual products in App Store Connect, used by enterprise and marketplace apps with complex, dynamic purchase catalogs. The Apple Maps Server API is a REST API that runs on your server, not on the device, to perform geocoding, reverse geocoding, place searches, and directions without consuming device resources or requiring a user session. By moving map queries to your server, you reduce the number of API calls made from client devices and improve response times when you can cache or batch results. Used in apps with server-side location processing, address validation pipelines, and high-volume geocoding needs. The Apple Pencil framework provides APIs for enhancing iPad app experiences with Apple Pencil input, detecting pencil hovering before it touches the screen, reading squeeze gestures on Apple Pencil Pro, responding to barrel roll orientation, and accessing precise pressure and tilt data. This goes beyond the basic touch input that UI Kit and Swift UI already provide from Apple Pencil. It gives you the deeper hardware capabilities, used in drawing, note-taking, design and annotation apps. Application Services is a Mac OS-specific umbrella framework providing common application-level tasks, printing, spelling checking, text searching, and data detection. It's a set of services your Mac app can call on without re-implementing foundational OS capabilities. Most developers access these through higher-level frameworks like AppKit, but Application Services underlies those capabilities at the system level. App Intents is the framework that makes your app's actions and content discoverable through system-wide experiences. Spotlight Search, Siri, the Shortcuts app, widgets, and the Action button on iPhone. You define your app's capabilities as intents, discrete, parameterized actions that the system can invoke on the user's behalf. When a user says, "Hey Siri, start a workout in my app," App Intents is the infrastructure that bridges that request into your app's code, used in productivity, fitness, smart home, and any app that benefits from system-level discoverability. App Migration Kit handles the one-time transfer of your app's on-device data between devices running different platforms. For example, when a user switches from Android to iPhone and wants to bring their app data with them, or vice versa. Apple provides this as a framework so developers can implement the migration experience once and have it work within the system's standard migration flow, used in cross-platform apps that need to preserve user data during a device switch. The App Store Server API is a REST API you call from your server to manage your customer's App Store transactions. You can look up transaction history, verify subscription status, extend subscription renewal dates, and send consumption information. It's the authoritative server-side view of your customer's purchases, the complement to StoreKit on the client side, used by subscription-based apps and any app with in-app purchases that needs server-side purchase validation. App Store Server Notifications delivers real-time webhook callbacks from Apple to your server whenever a subscription event occurs, a new subscription, a renewal, a cancellation, a billing retry, a refund. Rather than polling the App Store Server API, your server receives events the moment they happen, used by any subscription-based app that needs to immediately reflect changes in subscription status in its own database. Assignables is an education-specific framework providing wrappers around PDF documents to support the creation of assessments and student work. Teachers can create fillable assessment PDFs and distribute them to students. Students submit their completed work through the framework's infrastructure, part of Apple's education technology ecosystem, alongside ClassKit, used in educational apps targeting Apple School Manager environments. Audio Accessory Kit provides APIs for supporting audio features, specifically automatic audio switching, on compatible accessories. When a user brings a supported audio accessory near their device, Audio Accessory Kit enables the system to automatically route audio to that accessory, used by developers building audio accessories and apps that need to integrate with Apple's audio routing infrastructure. Automatic Assessment Configuration enables a restricted exam mode, single app mode, on iOS and iPad OS devices during tests and exams. It prevents students from switching to other apps, accessing the internet, or using certain system features like autocorrect and predictive text while an assessment is in progress. Integration with Apple School Manager and MDM makes this scalable for institutions. Used in educational testing apps, approved for use in Apple's education program. Automated Device Enrollment, formerly DEP Device Enrollment Program, lets organizations automatically enroll iOS and Mac OS devices into their MDM solution the moment the device is first turned on, without any manual configuration steps. Third-party MDM app developers use these APIs to implement the enrollment flow within their product. Enterprise-facing, used in corporate IT infrastructure tools. Background Tasks lets your app schedule and run deferred work when the app is not in the foreground. Things like refreshing data, processing uploads, or running ML inference that doesn't need to happen immediately. The system decides the optimal time to run background tasks based on battery, network conditions, and usage patterns. 2 task types are available: background app refresh, short tasks, and background processing, longer, compute-intensive work, used in any app that benefits from keeping data fresh without requiring the user to have the app open. Background Assets is a focused tool for reducing the time users wait for your app's required content after installing from the App Store. Rather than downloading large asset packs at first launch, Background Assets lets you initiate those downloads in the background before the user even opens the app for the first time, and keep assets up to date via scheduled background downloads, used in games, AR apps, and content apps with large required assets. BrowserKit provides 2 related capabilities for browser developers on iOS: transferring browser data, bookmarks, history, passwords, from one browser to another, and checking device eligibility for using an alternative browser engine. Both of these were introduced as part of Apple's regulatory changes in the EU for iOS 17 and later, used by developers building alternative web browsers on iOS. CallKit enables your VoIP app to present its calls using the native iOS call interface, the same full-screen incoming call UI, the same call log, the same integration with Do Not Disturb and Car Play as a cellular call. From the user's perspective, a VoIP call from your app looks and feels identical to a regular phone call. CallKit also handles audio session management, ensuring your app's audio activates at the right time, used in VoIP, video calling, and communication apps. CareKit is an open-source framework developed by Apple and the open-source community for building care plan apps, specifically, apps that help patients manage ongoing health conditions, track symptoms, and follow treatment schedules. It integrates with HealthKit for data and provides pre-built UI for care cards, contact views, and insights charts, used in digital health apps, chronic disease management tools, and patient engagement platforms. CarPlay enables your app to extend into the vehicles and dash infotainment system. CarPlay supports specific app categories: audio streaming, navigation, messaging, VoIP, EV charging, parking, food ordering, and fueling. Each supported category gets a defined set of UI templates that CarPlay renders on the car's screen. You don't build arbitrary UI, you populate Apple's templates with your app's data. Used in navigation apps like Google Maps and Waze, audio apps like Spotify, and messaging apps that support voice interaction while driving. CarKey provides access to the digital car key features in Apple Wallet, enabling users to lock, unlock, and start compatible vehicles from their iPhone or Apple Watch. App developers use CarKey to integrate the configuration and management of digital car keys within their own automotive apps, used by car manufacturer apps that want to surface key management alongside other vehicle features. Swift Charts is a declarative charting framework built on Swift UI that makes it straightforward to create beautiful, accessible data visualizations, line charts, bar charts, area charts, scatter plots, pie charts, and more, with automatic scaling, labels, and accessibility support. Like Swift UI itself, you describe what data to display and the framework handles the rendering. Integrates naturally with Swift UI views, used in health, finance, analytics, fitness, and any data-driven app. ClassKit enables educational apps to declare structured learning activities, reading assignments, exercises, quizzes, that teachers can assign through Apple School Manager and Schoolwork. Students' progress on those activities is reported back to teachers in real time, giving educators visibility into how their class is engaging with the app. Used in learning apps, educational games, and digital textbook applications. ClassKit Catalog API is the web-based companion to ClassKit, letting developers declare their app's available activities through a web API rather than only through the on-device ClassKit SDK. This enables activities to appear in Apple's Schoolwork app even before a student has installed your app, making content discovery easier for teachers. Used in conjunction with ClassKit for educational app development. ClassKit UI provides a pre-built Swift UI interface component for students to submit or withdraw documents within assigned activities in the Schoolwork app. It handles the document handoff flow. The student taps a button, the document is submitted to the teacher, without you having to build that UI from scratch. Used in assignment-based educational apps. ClockKit is the framework for building Apple Watch complications. The small data displays on watch faces. It uses a timeline-based data model. You provide a series of entries for past, present, and future times, and ClockKit renders the appropriate entry at each moment. In Watch OS 7 and later, complications can also be built using WidgetKit, which is now the preferred approach. ClockKit remains relevant for existing complications and for watch faces that specifically require ClockKit complication families. Used in fitness, weather, productivity, and any watch app that surfaces glanceable data. CloudKit is Apple's cloud database service, tightly integrated with iCloud. It lets you store structured app data, binary assets, and user records in iCloud containers, with per-user private databases and shared public databases. CloudKit handles authentication, using the user's Apple account, quota management, push notifications for data changes, and optional sharing between users. Core data can sync through CloudKit automatically via NS Persistent CloudKit container, used in any app that needs cloud sync, cross-device data sharing, or collaborative features. Contacts is the modern framework for reading and writing to the user's contacts database on iOS and Mac OS. It provides an object-oriented interface, CN Contact, CN Mutable Contact, for querying, creating, updating, and deleting contacts, with change notifications via CN Contact Store. Access requires explicit user permission. Used in messaging, email, social, and any app that integrates with the user's address book. Contact Provider enables your app to supply contacts to the system-wide contacts ecosystem, so contacts managed by your app, say, from a corporate directory or a specialized CRM, appear in the system phone app, messages, and mail, alongside the user's personal contacts. Users can select which contact providers to enable, used in business communication, CRM, and enterprise directory apps. Contacts UI provides pre-built UI kit controllers, CN Contact Picker View Controller, CN Contact View Controller, for displaying and picking contacts from the address book. Instead of building your own contacts browser, you present Apple's standard contacts UI and receive the selected contact, used in any app that needs contact selection or display without building a custom contacts browser. Core Data is Apple's mature, full-featured object graph and persistence framework for local storage. It provides an object relational mapping layer over SQLite, by default, with support for relationships, fetch requests, predicates, change tracking, undo/redo, and optional iCloud sync via CloudKit. Core Data is powerful and efficient for large, complex data models, while Swift Data offers a simpler API for new projects. Core Data remains the right choice for existing large code bases and complex persistence needs, used across virtually every category of app. Core Location provides the APIs for determining a device's geographic position using GPS, Wi-Fi triangulation, cellular network data, and barometric pressure. You can request one-time location fixes or continuous updates, geofence regions to receive alerts when the user enters or exits an area, and access heading data from the compass. Privacy is central. Users must grant permission, and your app must declare its usage purpose. Used in navigation, local search, delivery, fitness, and location-aware apps of every kind. Core Location UI provides a single, self-contained button, CL Location button, that lets users grant your app a one-time location permission directly in context, without a separate permission dialog. Tapping the button grants temporary access to the current location for that single request. It's designed for apps that only occasionally need location and want the most minimal permission surface, used in apps where location is situational rather than continuous. Core ML is Apple's on-device machine learning inference framework. You import a trained ML model in Apple's ML package format, and Core ML handles running it efficiently on the device's CPU, GPU, and neural engine. Models can be created with Create ML, converted from TensorFlow or PyTorch using CoreML tools, or downloaded from Apple's model gallery. Core ML powers many built-in Apple features and enables developers to run image classifiers, text analyzers, object detectors, and custom neural networks without a network connection, used in virtually every ML use case on Apple platforms. Core Motion provides access to the device's motion sensors, accelerometer, gyroscope, magnetometer, barometer, and pedometer. You can read raw sensor data or access process values like device attitude, orientation in 3D space, step count, floor count, and activity classification, walking, running, cycling. Core Motion is the gateway to the hardware that makes the iPhone and Apple Watch powerful fitness computers, used in fitness, AR, gaming, accessibility, and health apps. Core Spotlight lets you index your app's content into the system-wide Spotlight search index, so users can find items within your app directly from Spotlight or Safari suggestions, without having to open the app first. You define searchable items with titles, descriptions, and metadata, and optionally provide a URL to deep link into the relevant content when the user taps a result. Used in content apps, productivity tools, and any app whose data benefits from system-level discoverability. Core Text is the low-level text layout and font management engine that UIKit and AppKit are built on. It provides precise control over text shaping, glyph placement, line breaking, bidirectional text, and font attribute management, at a level of detail that higher-level text APIs don't expose. You'd use Core Text when you need custom text rendering, complex typographic effects, or when building a custom text editor that requires character-level control, used in text editors, PDF renderers, and design tools. Core Transferable provides the protocol, Transferable, that your model types adopt to participate in system sharing, drag and drop, copy-paste, and handoff. Rather than writing custom UTI and data conversion code every time you want a type to be shareable, you conform to Transferable and define how the type serializes and deserializes itself. Swift UI Share Link and Drag and Drop APIs work directly with transferable types, used in any app that shares content between apps or devices. Create ML is Apple's framework and app for training machine learning models directly on a Mac, using your own data, without writing any model architecture code. You drag in a dataset, choose a task, image classification, object detection, text classification, sound classification, activity classification, and more, and Create ML trains a core ML-compatible model. for cases where you need more control over the model architecture. Use Create ML components, used by any developer who wants to create a custom ML model without deep ML expertise. Create ML components is the lower-level API beneath Create ML, providing individual, composable machine learning components, feature extractors, transformers, classifiers that you can combine to build custom training pipelines. It gives ML practitioners full control over the training process while still producing core ML-compatible output. Used when Create ML's high-level tasks don't match your specific ML architecture needs. Data detection provides access to the system's data detection capabilities, the same engine that automatically identifies phone numbers, addresses, dates, flight numbers, and URLs in text across iOS and Mac OS. Your app can use data detection to identify these patterns in text it processes and receive structured representations of what was detected. Used in messaging, email, note-taking, and document processing apps. Device Activity provides the APIs for building parental controls that monitor how family members use specific apps and website categories without exposing individual usage data to your app. The system runs your app extension in a privacy-preserving context to enforce screen time policies and report aggregate activity, combined with family controls and managed settings. This forms Apple's Screen Time API surface for third-party parental control apps, used in family safety and digital wellness apps. Device Check provides a way for your server to mark individual Apple devices with small amounts of persistent state, even across app reinstalls and device resets, for fraud prevention. Apple maintains 2 bits of data per device per developer team, accessible via a server-to-server API. This allows you to detect fraudulent behavior, like repeatedly claiming free trials or abusing promotional offers on the same device. Works alongside AppAttest for integrity verification, used in subscription, promotional, and anti-fraud systems. DocKit provides the APIs for controlling accessories that automatically track subjects on camera as they move around, motorized phone stands and tripods that pan and tilt to keep a moving person in frame. Your app can integrate with these accessories to control the tracking behavior, define zones, and receive metadata about the tracked subject's position. Used in video calling, content creation, and live streaming apps. EventKit provides read and write access to the user's calendar events and reminders, both local and across all the user's sync calendar accounts, iCloud, Exchange, Google Calendar, etc. You can create events with invitees, set alarms, define recurrence rules, and query events across date ranges. Access requires user permission per calendar type, used in productivity, task management, scheduling, and time tracking apps. EventKit UI provides pre-built UI kit controllers for creating, viewing, and editing calendar events and reminders, the same interfaces the system calendar and reminders apps use. Instead of building your own event editor, you present EK Event Edit View Controller and get a polished, familiar event creation experience, used in apps that need to create calendar events without building a custom event editor. Extension Foundation is the base framework for building app extensions on Mac OS, executable bundles that extend the functionality of other apps without being embedded in them. It's the foundation layer that Extension Kit builds on. It handles the lifecycle, communication, and sandboxing of extensions, used when building extensions for Mac OS apps. Extension Kit extends Extension Foundation with support for extensions that provide custom UI, making it possible for your app extension to render views inside a host app. The host app can embed your extension's UI directly in its own interface. This enables powerful plugin architectures where third-party developers extend first-party or third-party apps with custom content, used in productivity apps and developer tools that support plugins or embedded extensions. The External Purchase Server API is part of Apple's framework for complying with regulations that allow certain apps to offer alternative payment methods. In eligible regions and categories, your server sends reports to Apple for purchase tokens received when your app handles external purchases for digital goods. This API is the reporting mechanism, the audit trail your server maintains for alternative transactions, used by apps that implement alternative payment methods under Apple's external purchase entitlement. Family Controls is the authorization framework for apps that provide parental control and digital wellness features. Your app must request the Family Controls entitlement and present a permission request to a parent or guardian who approves the app's ability to manage screen time policies on behalf of a child. Without Family Controls authorization, you can't access device activity, manage settings, or screen time APIs, used as the entry point for any parental control or family safety app. File Provider is the extension framework that enables your app to expose its files to the system document browser and to other apps that use UI Document Picker View Controller, like Mail, Pages, Keynote, and any other document-aware app. Users see your app's files alongside iCloud Drive and other file providers. You handle syncing, conflict resolution, and providing file data on demand. Used in cloud storage apps like Dropbox, Google Drive, and OneDrive. File Provider UI extends File Provider by letting you add custom actions to the document browser's context menu. Right-click menu items that appear when a user interacts with a file your app manages. Used in cloud storage apps that want to surface app-specific file actions in the system document browser. Finance Kit provides read access to financial data stored in the Wallet app, specifically transaction history for Apple Card and Apple Cash, and order information from participating merchants. Users must grant explicit permission per account. Finance Kit enables budgeting apps and financial management tools to offer a holistic view of the user's finances, including data from Apple's own financial products. Used in personal finance, budgeting, and expense tracking apps. Finance Kit UI provides the UI component for adding orders to Apple Wallet, specifically, presenting the Add to Wallet button and flow for merchant orders that you want to surface in the Wallet app's orders section. Used in e-commerce and retail apps that want to surface order status in Wallet. Health Kit is Apple's framework for accessing and sharing health and fitness data, steps, heart rate, sleep, workouts, nutrition, clinical records, and dozens of other health data types, with strong privacy controls that keep the user in control. The user grants granular permission per data type and per read/write direction. Health Kit is the central health data store on iOS and watchOS. Apple Watch continuously writes sensor data to Health Kit that your app can read. Used in fitness, health monitoring, clinical, nutrition, and wellness apps. HomeKit is Apple's framework for communicating with and controlling smart home accessories, lights, locks, thermostats, cameras, sensors, and more. Accessories that support HomeKit appear in the Apple Home app, and your app can also control them via HomeKit APIs. Accessories must be certified for HomeKit. The Matter Smart Home standard is HomeKit's successor protocol for new accessories, though HomeKit remains the iOS side API, used in smart home apps and any application that integrates with home automation. The iAd framework is completely deprecated and no longer functional. It will not work on current OS versions. It was the original attribution tool for Apple Search Ads campaigns. If you have code that still references iAd, it must be migrated. There is no compatibility fallback. The replacement is Ad Services, which provides the same Apple Search Ads attribution capability through a modern, working API. Identity Document Services enables your app to share mobile documents, like mobile driver's licenses stored in Wallet, using the Digital Credentials API. This is the mechanism for apps that need users to prove their identity digitally, where the user's device shares a verifiable credential from a government-issued document in Wallet. Used in identity verification, age verification, and secure access scenarios. Identity Document Services UI provides the pre-built UI for the identity document presentation flow, presenting a standard interface where the user can confirm which identity claims to share before the credential is transmitted. Companion to Identity Document Services, used in identity verification apps. The iWork Document Exporting API is a web API that converts iWork documents, pages, numbers, Keynote, to PDF. You submit the iWork file to Apple's servers and receive a PDF in return. Used by document management and collaboration apps that need to render iWork files as PDFs without requiring the iWork apps to be installed. JavaScript Core is the JavaScript engine that powers WebKit's browser runtime, exposed as a framework for running JavaScript from within your native app. You can evaluate JavaScript code, expose native Swift or Objective-C objects as JavaScript globals, call JavaScript functions from Swift, and call Swift code from JavaScript. Used in hybrid apps, scripting engines, template engines, and any app that needs to execute user-supplied or server-supplied JavaScript in a sandbox context. Journaling Suggestions presents a privacy-preserving set of recent personal events, photos, workouts, listen to music, significant locations, curated by the system into suggested journal entries that your app can display to inspire users to reflect or contribute content. The system selects and surfaces these events without exposing raw location or sensor history to your app, used in journaling, diary, reflection, and memory apps. Live Communication Kit enables your app to handle VoIP and cellular conversations with deep system integration, appearing in the native call UI, integrating with CarPlay, and coordinating audio sessions with other communication apps. It's a more comprehensive communication framework than CallKit, covering both calling and messaging coordination, used in communication apps that need first-class system call integration. MailKit enables you to build mail app extensions for Mac OS, extensions that can classify messages, compose messages in customized ways, or perform actions when messages are received. This is not for sending email programmatically, it's specifically for extending Apple's Mail app with custom behavior, used by developers building email security, productivity, or filtering plugins for mail. Manage Settings provides APIs for an authorized parental control app to read and write specific device settings on behalf of a family member, blocking apps, filtering web content, setting passcode restrictions. Works in conjunction with Family Controls Authorization, used in parental control and digital wellness apps. Managed App Distribution provides the infrastructure for managing how apps are distributed within an organization, relevant for enterprise developers working with mobile device management systems. It handles the organizational side of app entitlement and distribution, separate from the consumer app store. Manage Settings UI provides the standard system, shielded, overlay view, the full-screen blocking interface that appears when an app is restricted by parental controls. You configure the appearance and messaging of the shield so users understand why content is blocked and how to request access, used in parental control apps to give blocked users a clear, branded explanation. MapKit embeds interactive Apple Maps into your app, satellite and standard map tiles, annotations, overlays, route lines, and 3D flyover views. You can search for places, get directions, cluster annotations, and customize the map appearance with your own overlays and markers. MapKit integrates with core location for the user's current position and with app intents to appear in Siri-driven navigation requests, used in any app with location, mapping, navigation feature. Marketplace Kit is the framework for operating an alternative app marketplace on iOS, currently available in the EU under Digital Markets Act compliance. It provides the APIs marketplace operators need to manage app discovery, installation licenses, and the marketplace app experience, used by organizations authorized to distribute apps outside the App Store in eligible regions. Matter is the cross-industry smart home communication protocol, and Apple's Matter framework provides the iOS and Mac OS APIs for setting up and communicating with Matter-certified accessories. Matter enables interoperability across ecosystems. A Matter accessory can be controlled by Apple Home, Google Home, Amazon Alexa, and others simultaneously. Apple's implementation integrates Matter accessories into HomeKit, used in smart home apps that support Matter accessories. Matter support provides the extension point for setting up and controlling Matter accessories from within your app. It enables a streamlined setup experience for accessories that use your app as the primary controller, used by smart home accessory manufacturers that have a companion iOS app alongside their Matter accessory. The Messages framework provides app extensions, iMessage apps, that let users share interactive content within the Messages app, stickers, custom message bubbles, collaborative experiences, and media. You build a Messages extension that appears in the Messages app drawer, and users can send your content to anyone they're messaging, used in sticker packs, games, collaborative experiences, and media sharing apps. Message UI provides the pre-built MF Mail Compose View Controller and MF Message Compose View Controller, the standard iOS UI for composing emails and SMS/MMS messages from within your app. The user writes the message in the familiar interface. Your app pre-populates recipients, subject, and body, used in any app that needs to initiate an email or text message without leaving the app. Multi-peer connectivity enables peer-to-peer communication between nearby Apple devices over Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or combined infrastructure, without needing a central server or internet connection. Devices discover each other automatically and form a session for sending data, files, or streams. Used in local multiplayer games, offline collaboration, AirDrop-style file sharing features, and any scenario where nearby devices need to communicate directly. Natural language provides on-device text analysis, language identification, tokenization, lemmatization, part-of-speech tagging, named entity recognition, people, places, organizations, sentiment analysis, and word embeddings. All processing runs locally on the neural engine with no network call. Natural language is frequently used together with Core ML to build custom text classifiers, used in messaging apps, content moderation, smart search, and anywhere text needs to be understood beyond simple matching. Notification Center is the older pre-widget kit framework for building Today widgets, the small panels that used to appear in the Today view of Notification Center. On iOS 14 and later, Widget Kit replaced Notification Center widgets with home screen and lock screen widgets. Today widgets still run on Mac OS. For new widget development on iOS, use Widget Kit. On Mac OS, Notification Center widgets continue to function. PassKit covers two major capabilities. First, Apple Pay, integrating Apple's payment system into your app or website so users can pay with stored cards using Face ID or Touch ID without entering card numbers. Second, wallet passes, creating and distributing boarding passes, event tickets, loyalty cards, gift cards, and coupons that appear in the Wallet app and update automatically. Apple Pay on the web uses the JavaScript API covered in the web section, used in e-commerce, ticketing, hospitality, loyalty, and transit apps. Preference Panes is the Mac OS-specific framework for integrating your app settings into system settings, formerly system preferences. You build a preference pane bundle that the system loads in the appropriate section of system settings. Most modern apps manage their own preferences within the app itself, but system-level software, VPN clients, audio drivers, accessibility tools often lives in system settings, used in system extensions, daemons, low-level macOS utilities. Proximity Reader enables iPhone to act as a contactless card reader, reading NFC payment cards, loyalty cards, and identity documents without any additional hardware. It uses iPhone's NFC hardware to perform the reader role in contactless card transactions. Available on iPhone XS and later with iOS 16 and later. Used in point-of-sale apps and identity verification apps that need to read physical or digital wallet cards from another device. PushKit delivers high-priority, silent push notifications, called VoIP pushes, that can wake your app even when it's been force quit, specifically for handling incoming VoIP calls. The system wakes your app the moment a VoIP push arrives, so you can ring the user before they miss a call. PushKit is also used for watch complication updates and file provider sync triggers, used in VoIP and video calling apps where reliability is critical. Push-to-Talk provides the system UI and audio management for walkie-talkie style communication in your app, a persistent in-call experience where a user holds to talk and releases to listen. The framework handles the audio session, the persistent notification showing who's in the channel, and the privacy-preserving design that ensures audio is only transmitted while the button is held. Used in communication apps, field team coordination, and security apps. Quick Look lets your app present previews of files, PDF, images, Office documents, iWork files, audio, video, using the system's built-in preview engine without requiring you to write custom renders for each format. On iOS you present QL Preview Controller, on Mac OS you use Quick Look UI. You can also add a Quick Look extension to your app so other apps can preview your custom file formats using the same mechanism. Used in document management, email clients, and file browsers. Quick Look UI is the Mac OS-specific framework that provides the Quick Look UI framework for displaying file previews in Mac OS apps, including the Quick Look panel that appears when you press space in Finder. Used in Mac OS document apps and file managers. ResearchKit is an open-source framework built by Apple and the research community for building apps that conduct medical research studies. It provides pre-built survey modules, active task modules, reaction time, gait analysis, memory, and informed consent flows that meet clinical research standards. Integrates with HealthKit for objective health data collection. Used in academic research apps, clinical trial platforms, and medical study tools. The Retention Messaging API lets subscription apps display a pre-approved, configurable message to users who are in the process of canceling their subscription, a win-back message chosen in real time that Apple reviews and approves. It's designed to give developers a privacy-respecting way to communicate the value of staying subscribed without requiring direct access to the cancellation flow. Used in subscription app retention strategies. The Roster API provides read access to information about students, teachers, and classes in an Apple School Manager organization. For apps that need to know the structure of a school, which students are in which classes, who the teachers are, and so on. It's a web API, not a device framework, used in educational apps that integrate with school administration systems. Safari Services provides two key capabilities. First, SF Safari View Controller, an in-app browser that presents Safari inside your app, complete with autofill, cookies, and the address bar, without the user leaving your app. Second, SF Content Blocker Extension, building content blocker extensions that Safari loads to filter ads and trackers. SF Safari View Controller is widely used for OAuth flows and any in-app web browsing that benefits from the user's existing cookies and saved passwords. Secure Element Credential enables apps to access credentials, cryptographic keys, and certificates stored in the Secure Element chip on the device. The Secure Element is the tamper-resistant hardware component that also secures Apple Pay transactions, used in high-security applications like transit cards, access control, and identity verification that require hardware-backed credentials. Sensitive Content Analysis provides on-device detection of nudity in images and videos, the same underlying technology used by iOS communication safety features. Your app can scan images before displaying them and alert users or blur content. All analysis happens on device with no data leaving the device. Used in messaging, social, and content apps that want to provide a safety layer for potentially sensitive content. Services account linking provides APIs for linking reseller accounts. For example, a carrier subscription that includes an Apple service, with the user's Apple ID for media and purchases. It's used by telecommunications operators and retail partners who bundle Apple services. Used in carrier and reseller apps. Shared with you surfaces links and content that friends share via messages, automatically appearing in supported apps like Safari, Music, Podcasts, and News, without requiring the user to manually navigate to the link. Your app can participate in shared with you to surface content your users have been sent. Used in content apps where social sharing via messages is a primary discovery mechanism. Siri Kit enables your app's functionality to be triggered by voice through Siri, as well as through Siri-suggested shortcuts that appear on the lock screen and in Spotlight. Siri Kit uses intense, predefined categories of actions like messaging, workouts, payments, restaurant reservations, and ride booking that Siri knows how to handle. App Intents is the modern, more flexible successor for general-purpose intents, while Siri Kit remains the framework for domain-specific voice interactions, used in messaging, fitness, finance, and productivity apps. SK Ad Network for web ads extends Apple's privacy-preserving app install attribution to ad campaigns that originate on web pages rather than in apps. When a user sees a web ad and then installs an app from the App Store, SK Ad Network for web ads provides an anonymized post back to the ad network confirming the attribution. No individual user is identified. Used by advertising platforms and measurement providers tracking web-to-app conversion. SMS and call reporting provides an extension point for building spam and fraud detection tools that analyze incoming SMS messages and phone calls. Your app extension can examine message content or caller ID and classify them as spam or legitimate. The system uses your classification to filter them into the junk folder or warn the user. Used in telecom security apps and carrier-integrated anti-spam tools. Social provides a simple API for posting content to social networks from within your app, specifically to Twitter and Facebook, using accounts registered in settings. This framework is older and reflects an era when social integration was expected to be built into the OS. Modern social sharing typically uses UI Activity View Controller or direct SDK integration with each platform. Social remains in some older codebases, but is rarely used in new development. Speech provides on-device and server-based speech recognition, converting live microphone audio or pre-recorded audio files into text. SF Speech Recognizer supports many languages and produces transcripts with word timing, confidence scores, and alternative interpretations. On-device recognition is available for many languages on newer devices, used in transcription apps, voice command interfaces, accessibility tools, and any app that converts spoken words to text. StoreKit is the framework for in-app purchases, consumables, non-consumables, and subscriptions, and for interacting with the App Store. StoreKit 2, introduced in iOS 15, provides a modern Swift Async API for fetching products, initiating purchases, and verifying transactions via signed JWTs, eliminating the need for a server-side receipt validation in many cases. StoreKit also includes the functionality for requesting App Store reviews and displaying in-app App Store product pages, used in virtually every app that monetizes through in-app purchase. Tabular Data is a Swift framework for working with table-structured data, loading CSVs, creating data frames, filtering rows, aggregating values, and transforming columns. It's the data preparation layer that feeds into Create ML for model training. Tabular Data provides a type-safe Swift-native way to work with structured data that would otherwise require a third-party library, used in ML data pipelines and any app that processes tabular data files. Telephony Messaging Kit enables sending and receiving standards-based messages over cellular networks, specifically supporting RCS, Rich Communication Services, the successor to SMS/MMS. It provides a framework for building messaging apps that use the cellular network's messaging infrastructure rather than an internet-based messaging protocol, used in carrier-integrated messaging apps. TipKit provides a simple, system-consistent framework for displaying tips and feature discovery, prompts inside your app, small contextual callouts that explain a feature the user hasn't tried yet. The system tracks which tips have been shown, manages display frequency rules, and can synchronize tip state across the user's devices via iCloud, used in any app that wants to guide users toward discovering features without building a custom onboarding or tooltip system. Translation provides a Swift API for translating text from one language to another on device for many language pairs using a downloaded language pack. You can display the system translation UI or translate text in the background without user interaction. Pairs with translation UI provider for the extension point that lets your app contribute to the system translation experience, used in reading, browsing, messaging, and travel apps. TV services enables apps to integrate with the Apple TV app, providing channel guides, content metadata, subscription status, and multi-user support for video subscription services. If you're building a video streaming service for Apple TV, TV services is how you surface your content catalog in the Apple TV Apps Up Next and Watch Now tabs, used in video streaming and cable/satellite TV apps. User notifications is the framework for scheduling, managing, and responding to both local device-generated and remote server push notifications. You define notification content, title, body, sound, badge count, custom UI, and delivery conditions like a specific date/time or a geographic trigger. The framework handles permission requests, notification categories with action buttons, and notification grouping, used in virtually every app that communicates with the user outside of active use. User Notifications UI provides the extension point for custom notification interfaces, the expanded notification that appears when a user force touches or long presses a notification banner. Instead of the default title and body, you can display a rich custom view with images, interactive controls, and live data, used in messaging, sports, health, and media apps that want richer notification experiences. Wallet Orders enables merchants to create and distribute order summaries in Apple Wallet, showing the status of a purchase, delivery tracking, and order details in the same place the user's payment card's live. Orders update automatically as the order status changes, used in e-commerce, delivery, and retail apps. Wallet Passes is the framework for creating and distributing wallet passes, boarding passes, event tickets, loyalty cards, coupons, gift cards, and generic identifier cards. Passes are distributed as PKPass files via email, Safari, or your app and appear in Wallet. They can be updated via push notifications when the underlying data changes, like a flight gate change, used in airlines, events, retail, hospitality, and transit apps. Watch Connectivity provides a bidirectional communication channel between an iOS app and its paired Watch OS companion app. You can send messages in real time when both apps are active, transfer files and user info dictionaries in the background, and keep a small amount of synchronized context always available on the watch, used in any app that has both an iPhone and Apple Watch component. WeatherKit provides current conditions, minute-by-minute precipitation forecasts, hourly and daily forecasts, and severe weather alerts, sourced from Apple's weather service, built on dark skies technology. It's a first-party weather data API that works without a third-party subscription, integrated directly into the Apple developer ecosystem. Requires attribution in your UI, available on all Apple platforms, used in weather apps, outdoor activity planners, agriculture apps, and any app where environmental conditions are relevant. WeatherKit REST API is the server-side companion to the on-device WeatherKit framework, the same weather data, accessible via authenticated REST calls from your own server. Useful for server-side weather data fetching, batch requests, and scenarios where you need weather data outside of an Apple device context. Used in backend services, data pipelines, and web apps that incorporate Apple's weather data. WebKit is Apple's web browser engine, the same engine that powers Safari, exposed as a framework for embedding web content in native apps. WK WebView is the primary component, a high-performance, sandboxed web view that renders HTML, CSS, and JavaScript with full Safari capabilities. WebKit also provides JavaScript injection, message passing between web content and native code, and custom URL scheme handling, used in hybrid apps, in-app browsers, and any app that displays web content. WidgetKit is the framework for building widgets, the configurable, glanceable views that appear on the iOS home screen, the iPad home screen, the Mac desktop, the Watch OS Smart Stack, the lock screen, and the standby view. Widgets use Swift UI and follow a timeline-based rendering model. You provide a series of entries for future times, and WidgetKit renders the appropriate one at each moment. WidgetKit also powers watch complications on Watch OS 9 and later, used in any app that surfaces time-sensitive or contextual information outside the app itself. Wireless Insights enables your app to receive advanced notifications about anticipated changes in cellular data service conditions. For example, a warning that network congestion is expected in the next few minutes. This lets your app adapt proactively, prefetching content while the connection is good or notifying the user that a download should be started now. Used in streaming, download-heavy, and network-sensitive apps. Workout Kit provides APIs for creating, previewing, and syncing structured workout compositions, custom interval training and swimming workout plans to the Workout app on Apple Watch. The user sees your app's workout plan appear in the native workout app experience, and health data flows back through HealthKit, used in fitness apps that want to provide guided workout experiences on Apple Watch. Vision provides computer vision algorithms for analyzing images and video, face detection, face landmarks, text recognition, OCR, barcode and QR code scanning, object detection, body pose estimation, hand pose, and saliency analysis. Most algorithms run on-device using the neural engine. Vision sits above Core ML. You can use a custom Core ML model within a VN image request handler and provides the request/observation pipeline for image analysis. Used in camera apps, document scanners, R, health monitoring, and any app that needs to understand what's in an image. Vision Kit sits above Vision and provides higher-level, user-facing capabilities. VN Document Camera View Controller for document scanning, automatically detects, descues, and captures document pages, and Data Scanner View Controller for real-time scanning of barcodes, QR codes, and text from the live camera feed. Vision Kit gives you the polished system scanning experience without building your own camera pipeline. Used in document scanners, inventory apps, retail apps, and any app that needs to capture structured data from the physical world. Safety Kit detects and responds to car crash events. It monitors the device's sensors for the patterns characteristic of a vehicle collision, and, when detected, can trigger an emergency response flow that contacts emergency services if the user is unresponsive. Your app can integrate with Safety Kit to receive crash event callbacks and customize the response. Used in navigation, roadside assistance, and emergency response apps. Xcode is Apple's integrated development environment, the primary tool for writing, building, testing, and submitting Apple apps. It includes a code editor with Swift and Objective-C support, interface builder for visual UI design, a debugger, instruments for performance profiling, a simulator for running apps without physical hardware, and the toolchain for code signing and App Store submission. If you're building apps for any Apple platform, Xcode is where you'll spend most of your time, available free from the Mac App Store. Xcode Cloud is Apple's cloud-based continuous integration and delivery service, built directly into Xcode and App Store Connect. You configure workflows that automatically build, test, and distribute your app when you push to a branch or open a pull request. Xcode Cloud runs your tests on Apple's infrastructure, provides test result dashboards in App Store Connect, and can automatically distribute builds to test flight, used by any development team that wants CI/CD without managing their own build servers. XC-Test is Apple's primary testing framework for unit tests, performance tests, and UI tests. You write test cases as subclasses of XC test case, using assertions like XCT assert equal and XCT assert throws error to verify behavior. Xcode integrates XC test results into the editor margin and test navigator. XC test is available for all Apple platforms and is the foundation that Xcode Cloud, Swift testing, and third-party testing tools build on. Swift testing is Apple's modern testing framework, introduced alongside XC-Test as a more expressive alternative. It uses Swift macros, @test, @suite, and the #expect macro for assertions, providing cleaner syntax, better error messages, and support for parameterized tests. Swift testing integrates with Xcode's test navigator and can run alongside existing XC-Test tests in the same target, the recommended framework for new test code in Swift projects. XQE Automation is the framework underlying Xcode's UI testing capability. It provides the APIs for programmatically interacting with your app's UI during automated tests, tapping buttons, entering text, swiping, and verifying that elements exist and are in the expected state. UI tests run as a separate process that drives your app like a robot user, used for end-to-end UI test automation as part of a CI pipeline. Xcode Kit provides the extension point for building Xcode source editor extensions, plugins that add custom commands to Xcode's editor menu. Your extension can read and modify the current source file's text selection, transforming code in user-defined ways. Common uses: code formatting, snippet insertion, comment templates, and code generation. Distributed as Mac OS apps that contain an Xcode source editor extension. Swift packages, managed by the Swift Package Manager, Swift PM, are the standard mechanism for creating reusable Swift libraries and distributing them to other projects. A package is defined by a package Swift manifest that specifies targets, products, dependencies, and platform requirements. Swift PM is built into Swift and Xcode. Adding a package dependency to your Xcode project is a few clicks. This is the preferred distribution mechanism for open-source Swift libraries. Package description is the module you import in your package Swift file to define a Swift package structure. The APIs and package description, package, target, product, dependency, are what you use to specify your package name its targets, source code, its products, libraries, and executables, and its dependencies on other packages. Understanding package description is essential for authoring and customizing Swift packages. Docsy is Apple's documentation compiler, the tool that converts documentation comments and articles written in Markdown into fully navigable, interactive documentation websites and archives. Xcode integrates Docsy so that option clicking on a symbol shows its documentation, and you can build a documentation archive for distribution or hosting on a web server. Apple uses Docsy for its own developer documentation at developer.apple.com, used by any developer who wants to publish polished documentation alongside their Swift package or framework. Swift Playgrounds is both an app for iPad and Mac and a development environment for learning Swift and building simple Swift UI apps. On iPad, it's the primary learning environment for beginners new to Swift. On Mac, it's a quick prototyping tool. Swift Playgrounds can submit apps directly to the App Store for simple apps. The Playground support and Playground Bluetooth frameworks extend the Playgrounds environment. Playground support provides APIs for sharing data between a Swift Playground and an external host, managing live views, interactive Swift UI, or UI kit views that display alongside Playground code, and controlling Playground execution. Used when authoring learning content in Swift Playgrounds or when building Playground-based learning experiences for students. Playground Bluetooth provides a simplified Bluetooth interface for Swift Playgrounds, enabling students and learners to connect to and control Bluetooth accessories directly from a playground without the full complexity of core Bluetooth. Used in educational coding products that pair with physical hardware. Reality Composer Pro is a Mac OS tool for building and previewing 3D content for Vision OS and Reality Kit apps. It provides a visual scene editor for assembling 3D objects, animations, particle systems, and physics. It integrates with Shader Graph for custom material creation and exports to the US format that Reality Kit loads. It's the primary design tool for Vision OS spatial content, analogous to what Interface Builder is for 2D UI, used in Vision OS, RKit, and Reality Kit app development. Shader Graph is a node-based visual material editor integrated into Reality Composer Pro. You connect nodes that represent mathematical operations, texture lookups, and lighting calculations to define how a surface looks in 3D, without writing GLSL or metal shader code. Shader Graph exports metal shaders optimized for Reality Kit, used in 3D content creation for Vision OS and AR Kit apps. Safari Developer Features covers the web inspection and debugging tools available in Safari, Web Inspector, the JavaScript console, the network request timeline, and the ability to remotely inspect web content running on connected iPhone or iPad. Essential for web developers who need to debug WebKit-specific rendering or test web apps on real iOS devices. Used by web developers and hybrid app developers targeting Safari. Scripting Bridge provides a way to control scriptable Mac OS apps that expose an Apple script or automation interface from Swift or Objective-C code. Rather than writing AppleScript, you generate a Swift API from the App Scripting Dictionary and call it directly. Used in Mac OS automation tools and apps that orchestrate other Mac OS apps, like controlling Keynote, Numbers, or third-party apps programmatically. Automator is Apple's automation tool for Mac OS, a visual workflow builder where users chain actions together to automate repetitive tasks. The Automator framework lets you develop custom Automator actions, bundles that define a discrete step a workflow can perform, with a custom UI and native code. Automator is also accessible from Swift code for programmatic workflow execution, used in Mac OS productivity tools and custom automation scenarios. StoreKit Test provides a local testing environment for in-app purchase flows in Xcode. You can simulate purchases, subscriptions, subscription renewals, billing failures, refunds, and promotional offers without hitting the App Store's sandbox servers. It integrates with XCTest so you can write fully automated test cases that exercise your purchase flow. Used in testing the StoreKit integration of any app with in-app purchases. Analytics Reports covers the structured analytics data Apple makes available to developers through App Store Connect, crash logs, performance metrics, App Store conversion rates, download trends, and usage statistics. The documentation describes the report formats, field definitions, and how to interpret the data. Used by developers monitoring app health, diagnosing crashes, and tracking business metrics. The Enterprise Program API provides REST endpoints for automating administrative tasks on the Apple developer website, managing devices, certificates, provisioning profiles, and bundle ID programmatically. This is the API that CI systems and device management platforms use to automatically register new devices or renew expired certificates without requiring manual web portal interaction. a subset of the broader App Store Connect API, used in enterprise development workflows and CI/CD pipelines. The App Store Connect API is a comprehensive REST API for automating the tasks you'd otherwise do manually in App Store Connect, managing app metadata, uploading builds, managing beta testers, reading crash reports and analytics, managing subscriptions, and managing your development team. It uses JWT-based authentication and returns JSON, used by release engineers, CI/CD pipelines, and teams that need to automate repetitive App Store Connect workflows. Installer.js provides JavaScript APIs for customizing the Mac OS installer experience, adding custom pages, pre-installation checks, and post-installation configuration to Mac OS installer packages, PKG files, used by Mac OS software developers who distribute via installer packages and need custom setup flows. Safari app extensions are the modern mechanism for building Safari browser extensions on Mac OS and iOS, extensions that can block content, modify web pages, add toolbar buttons, and interact with browsing sessions. On iOS, they appear in the extension list in Safari's share sheet. On Mac OS, they're installed and managed in Safari Preferences. Safari extensions are distributed through the App Store and run in a sandboxed extension process, used in ad blockers, password managers, productivity tools, and web content modifiers. Synchronization is a Swift low-level concurrency framework providing primitive synchronization constructs, locks, mutexes, and atomic operations that you use to build higher-level synchronization abstractions. It's the building block layer below Dispatch and Swift concurrencies actors, useful when you need direct control over memory ordering or when writing performance-critical code that can't absorb the overhead of higher-level abstractions, used in systems programming and performance-critical concurrent code. Tech Notes is a collection of in-depth technical articles from Apple on specific, often tricky development topics, deep dives into sandboxing, notarization, file coordination, audio session configuration, and other topics that span multiple frameworks. Not a framework itself, but a documentation resource that's valuable when you hit a particularly thorny platform-specific problem. Developer Tools support provides APIs for exposing custom Swift UI views and modifiers in the Xcode component library, the panel in Xcode's canvas that lets you drag UI components into your view hierarchy. By adopting the Library Content Provider protocol, your Swift UI library can appear as a palette of components available to any project that depends on it, used by Swift UI component library authors. XCSelect is a command line tool, Xcode Select, for managing which version of Xcode and its command line tools are active on a Mac with multiple Xcode installations. It sets the path that Xcode Build, Synctool, and other Xcode command line tools resolve to, used in CI environments and developer machines that need to switch between Xcode versions for testing compatibility. Metal is Apple's low-level GPU programming framework, the foundation of all hardware-accelerated graphics and compute on Apple platforms. Metal gives you direct access to the GPU with a minimal driver overhead, letting you write custom vertex and fragment shaders, manage GPU memory, set up render pipelines, and dispatch compute kernels. Every rendering framework Apple provides, Reality Kit, Scene Kit, Sprite Kit, Core Animation, runs on Metal. If you need maximum GPU performance, custom rendering effects, or GPU-accelerated compute, machine learning, image processing, physics simulation, Metal is where you go. Available on iOS, Mac OS, tvOS, and Vision OS. Metal Kit removes the boilerplate from setting up a Metal rendering loop. It provides MTK View, a UI kit/app kit view that manages the Metal drawable and calls your render delegate on each frame, plus utilities for loading textures from files, synchronizing buffer updates, and handling the model loading that Model I/O provides. If Metal is the engine, Metal Kit is the starting block that gets you rendering your first triangle in minutes rather than hours, used as the entry point for any Metal-based renderer. Metal Performance Shaders, MPS, is a library of highly optimized GPU kernels for common image processing and machine learning operations, convolutions, matrix multiplications, image filters, histogram computations. These kernels are hand-tuned for each generation of Apple GPU silicon, running significantly faster than equivalent code written in standard Metal shaders. MPS is used internally by Core ML and Vision. Developers use it directly when building custom ML inference pipelines or GPU-accelerated image processing, used in machine learning, image editing, and scientific computing apps. MPS Graph builds on Metal Performance Shaders to provide a graph-based API for composing and executing complex compute workflows, especially neural network training and inference graphs, across CPU, GPU, and the neural engine simultaneously. It's the compute graph runtime that Core ML uses internally to run complex models. Developers who need more control than Core ML provides, such as custom training loops on device, use MPS graph directly, used in advanced ML research apps and custom inference engines. MetalFX provides GPU-accelerated upscaling for Metal apps, taking a lower-resolution rendered frame and upscaling it to native resolution with temporal anti-aliasing and spatial upsampling algorithms. This allows games to render at a lower cost and then upscale the result, achieving high visual quality at higher frame rates, analogous to NVIDIA DLSS or AMD's FSR, but built specifically for Apple hardware, used in metal-based games and graphics-intensive apps targeting Apple Silicon. Core Graphics, also known as Quartz 2D, is Apple's 2D drawing engine, providing path-based drawing, image rendering, PDF generation, transparency, and color management through a C API. It draws into graphics contexts, which can target the screen, an off-screen bitmap, or a PDF file. Core Graphics underlies UIKit and AppKit. Every view's DrawRect is a Core Graphics context. When you need to generate custom images, draw charts, annotate PDFs, or render resolution-independent graphics, Core Graphics is the framework, used in document apps, chart rendering, custom controls, and image generation. Core Image is a GPU-accelerated image processing framework providing over 230 built-in filters, blur, color correction, distortion, stylization, detection, and more that can be chained into filter graphs and applied to still images or video frames in real time. Filters run on Metal. Core Image also powers the system's camera effects and some features in photos. Developers use Core Image for non-destructive image editing, real-time camera filters, and video processing pipelines, used in photo editing, camera, and video apps. Core Animation is the animation and compositing engine that UIKit and AppKit are built on. Every view has an underlying CA layer. Core Animation manages the rendering and compositing of those layers on the GPU. You can animate layer properties, position, opacity, transform, corner radius, with either implicit animations or explicit CA animation objects, and Core Animation smoothly interpolates between values, automatically rendering intermediate frames. Direct use of Core Animation gives you capabilities beyond UIKit/Swift UI's animation APIs, custom timing functions, keyframe animations, particle layers, and more, used in custom animated UI and effects. Core Video provides the pipeline for processing digital video at the frame level, managing video buffers via CV Pixel Buffer, synchronizing video rendering with Core Animation using CV Display Link, and interfacing between video hardware and software. Most developers work with video through AV Foundation or Core Image, but Core Video is the underlying buffer management layer they share, used in video processing, real-time camera effects, and custom video rendering pipelines. ARKit is Apple's framework for building augmented reality experiences, overlaying digital content on top of the real world as seen through the camera. ARKit handles the hard problems of AR, tracking the device's position and orientation in space using the camera and motion sensors, detecting and estimating the geometry of flat surfaces, understanding scene lighting, and anchoring virtual content to real-world positions. ARKit works alongside RealityKit for rendering or SceneKit and Metal for custom renderers. Used in AR games, interior design apps, measurement tools, navigation, retail try-on, and education. RealityKit is Apple's high-level 3D rendering and simulation framework, purpose-built for augmented reality and with Vision OS for spatial computing. It provides an entity component system architecture for building 3D scenes, entities with components like mesh, material, lighting, physics, and animation. RealityKit renders on Metal, integrates directly with ARKit for AR anchoring, and is the rendering engine used in Reality Composer Pro. On Vision OS, RealityKit is the primary framework for all 3D content, used in AR apps, Vision OS apps, interactive 3D experiences, and spatial games. SceneKit is a high-level 3D graphics framework for building non-AR 3D games and visualizations, providing a scene graph model, built-in physics, particle systems, and animation support, all rendered via Metal. SceneKit is officially deprecated. New 3D development should use RealityKit, which provides equivalent and superior capabilities, is actively maintained, and is the target for all future Apple investment in 3D rendering. If you're working with existing SceneKit code, it will continue to run, but migration to RealityKit is recommended. SpriteKit is a high-level 2D game framework providing a scene graph for sprites, physics simulation, particle systems, animations, and built-in actions like move, scale, and fade. It renders on Metal and integrates with Gameplay Kit for AI and game logic. SpriteKit is the recommended framework for 2D games on Apple platforms. It's higher level than Metal for 2D rendering, with an integrated physics engine and sound support. Used in 2D games, casual games, interactive animations, and any app that benefits from a scene graph for 2D content. GameKit is Apple's social gaming platform, providing Game Center integration for leaderboards, achievements, challenges, multiplayer matchmaking, and friend relationships. It's the social layer on top of your game logic. GameKit connects players, tracks accomplishments, and enables real-time and turn-based multiplayer across the Game Center network, used in games that want competitive leaderboards, achievement systems, or peer-to-peer and server-mediated multiplayer. Gameplay Kit provides reusable game logic components and algorithms, random number generators with game-appropriate distributions, entity component systems for organizing game objects, state machines, goal-based AI behavior using GK agent, rule systems, pathfinding, and spatial partitioning. Gameplay Kit is framework agnostic. It works with Sprite Kit, Scene Kit, or custom metal renderers. It's the game logic toolkit that lets you focus on game design rather than re-implementing common algorithms, used in games of all kinds where AI, pathfinding, or structured game state is needed. GameSave provides APIs for storing and syncing GameSave files in iCloud, the player's progress, unlocked content, and game state across all their Apple devices. Rather than implementing your own CloudKit sync for saved data, GameSave handles the conflict resolution and sync logic, used in games that want cross-device progress sync without building a custom cloud save system. Game Controller provides a unified API for connecting and reading input from hardware game controllers, MFI-certified controllers, PlayStation DualShock and DualSense controllers, Xbox controllers, and the Siri remote. You can query button states, thumbstick positions, trigger pressures, and haptic feedback with a device-agnostic API that works regardless of which controller is connected, used in any game or interactive app that supports physical game controllers. Tabletop Kit provides APIs for building multiplayer spatial games on a virtual table surface in Vision OS, physical feeling card games, board games, and tabletop experiences that players around a shared space can interact with using their hands. It integrates with FaceTime spatial audio for voice communication and handles the shared space coordination for multiple Vision OS users, used in Vision OS games and social gaming experiences. Touch Controller provides on-screen touch control overlays for metal-based games, a customizable virtual gamepad with buttons, thumbsticks, and triggers that appears on the touch screen for games that are designed for physical controllers but need touch input as a fallback, used in iOS games that support both touch and controller input. ColorSync is Apple's color management framework, the system that ensures colors look consistent across different input devices, cameras, scanners, displays, and output devices, printers. It manages ICC color profiles and transforms colors between color spaces. Most developers never call ColorSync directly. It runs transparently in the graphics pipeline, but developers building color-critical apps like photo editors and print tools need to understand and interact with it, used in professional photo, video, and print applications. Compositor Services is a Vision OS framework that gives you direct control over the rendering environment in a fully immersive experience, bypassing Reality Kit's scene graph and rendering your own metal frames directly to the Vision OS display compositor. This is the lowest-level rendering path available on Vision OS, intended for custom game engines and performance-critical renderers that need frame-level control, used in game engines and advanced graphics apps on Vision OS. Foveated streaming enables Vision OS apps to receive and display high-resolution, low-latency immersive video streamed from an external source, for example, a Mac or a game streaming service. It implements foveated rendering on the receiving end, displaying highest quality where the user's eyes are focused and lower quality in the periphery, reducing bandwidth and processing requirements, used in Vision OS streaming apps and remote rendering scenarios. GLKit is a utility framework that was designed to ease the transition from fixed-function OpenGL to shader-based OpenGL-ES. It provides matrix math utilities, pre-built shaders, and a view class for OpenGL rendering. With OpenGL-ES now deprecated, GLKit is effectively deprecated too. Any app using GLKit for rendering should migrate to Metal. The math utilities in GLKit may still be found in legacy codebases, but the SIMD framework is the modern equivalent, retained here as historical context for developers encountering older code. ImageI/O provides read and write access to a wide range of image file formats, JPEG, PNG, HEIC, TIFF, GIF, PDF, and many others, along with access to image metadata, EXIF, IPK, GPS data. It's a low-level C API that underlies higher-level image loading in UIKit and AppKit. Developers use ImageI/O directly when they need metadata access, precise format control, or when working with formats that UIKit doesn't expose cleanly, used in photo editing, asset management, and image conversion tools. Image Playground provides a system interface for generating images using Apple Intelligence. The user describes what they want, and the system generates an image on device. Your app presents the Image Playground sheet and receives the generated image back. It's the entry point for integrating Apple's on-device generative image model into your app, used in creative, journaling, messaging, and note-taking apps. Model I/O provides import and export of 3D model data in common formats: USD, OBJ, ABC, STL, PLY, along with mesh processing utilities like tessellation, subdivision, and baking. It integrates with MetalKit for GPU buffer creation, GLKit, historically, and SceneKit. Model I/O is the data ingestion layer for 3D content. You load a model file with Model I/O and pass the resulting mesh data to your rendering framework, used in 3D content apps, AR pipelines, and tools that process 3D geometry. PDFKit provides a comprehensive framework for displaying and manipulating PDF documents, rendering PDF pages, navigating multi-page documents, text selection, text search, annotation creation and editing, highlights, notes, free text, and programmatic PDF generation and modification. It's available on iOS, iPad OS, and Mac OS, used in document viewers, annotation tools, form-filling apps, and any app that works with PDF files. PencilKit provides the drawing canvas and data model for capturing and displaying freehand drawings from Apple Pencil or FingerTouch. PK Canvas View is the interactive drawing surface. PK Drawing is the underlying data model that stores strokes in a resolution-independent format. Drawings can be rendered at any scale without quality loss. PencilKit integrates with Apple Pencil's full precision, pressure, tilt, and velocity, and provides tool palettes, undo/redo, and selection tools, used in note-taking, annotation, sketching, and drawing apps. Quartz is a Mac OS-specific framework providing image browser and slideshow capabilities. The Quartz Composer, no longer active, and the Quartz Composer framework, along with APIs for image browsing with core image filters. In modern development, Quartz is rarely used directly. Core image handles filtering and standard UI handles browsing, relevant in older Mac OS codebases and creative media applications. QuickTime File Format is the specification and supporting APIs for Apple's QuickTime Container Format, a flexible, extensible format for storing and exchanging audiovisual media. The MAV file format is QuickTime. Most modern development works through AV Foundation, which uses QuickTime containers under the hood. The QuickTime file format documentation is most relevant for developers parsing or generating MAV files at the binary level in tools or media pipelines. ReplayKit enables apps to record or broadcast the screen and audio, including audio from the microphone and from the app, as a video stream. Users can share gameplay recordings to social media, broadcast live via streaming services, or save recordings to photos. ReplayKit provides both an in-process recorder for simple recording and an RP broadcast extension for live streaming to third-party services, used in games, creative tools, and any app that benefits from screen recording or live streaming. Room Plan uses the device's camera, LiDAR scanner, and AR kit to guide a user through scanning a room and producing a parametric 3D model, walls, windows, doors, openings, and furniture that can be exported as a USD file. The result is an accurate architectural model of the physical space, used in real estate apps, interior design tools, furniture planning apps, and AR home visualization. Spatial is a Swift mathematics library for 3D geometry, providing types and operations for points, vectors, rays, bounding boxes, sizes, rectangles in 3D space, rotations, affine transforms, and projective transforms. It's the coordinate geometry foundation used by ARKit, RealityKit, and other 3D frameworks. Developers use Spatial when they need to perform precise 3D math, intersection tests, coordinate space conversions, geometric queries, in a type-safe, Swift native way, used across all 3D development on Apple platforms. USD, Universal Scene Description, is Pixar's open standard for representing 3D scenes, and Apple has adopted it as the primary 3D content format across its ecosystem. Apple's USD format, a packaged USD archive, is used for AR Quick Look on iOS, for Reality Composer and Reality Composer Pro, and for the object capture workflow. The USD framework provides APIs for reading, writing, and manipulating USD assets programmatically, used in 3D content pipelines, AR content creation tools, and apps that import or export 3D scenes. AV Foundation is Apple's primary high-level framework for working with audiovisual assets, playing and recording video, capturing from the camera and microphone, editing and compositing media, reading and writing media files, and analyzing audio and video. It abstracts the hardware and codec layer and provides a pipeline model for media processing. Most apps that work with Media touch AV Foundation. Lower-level needs go to Core Audio or Core Video. Higher-level playback UI uses AV Kit. Used in video players, camera apps, recording apps, editing tools, and streaming media applications. AV Kit provides pre-built, full-featured media playback UI, the AV Player View controller with its transport controls, chapter navigation, subtitles, AirPlay routing, and picture-in-picture support. Rather than building your own playback controls around an AV player, you present an AV Player View controller and get a polished, accessible player instantly. On Mac OS, AV Kit integrates with the system media controls in the menu bar and touch bar, used in any app that plays video and wants the standard Apple playback experience. AVF Audio is the audio-focused subset of AV Foundation, providing AV Audio Player for simple audio file playback, AV Audio Recorder for recording, AV Audio Session for configuring your app's audio behavior in relation to the system and other apps, and AV Audio Engine for building audio processing graphs. AV Audio Session is critical. It's how you declare whether your app plays music that should duck other audio, whether you need microphone access, and how your app responds to interruptions like phone calls. Used in any app that plays audio, records audio, or needs control over audio session behavior. AV Routing provides APIs for displaying custom audio/video routing destinations in the system route picker, enabling your app to surface custom streaming endpoints, like branded devices on your local network, alongside AirPlay destinations and Bluetooth speakers, used in apps with proprietary wireless speaker or display ecosystems. Cinematic provides APIs for integrating playback and editing of assets recorded in cinematic mode on iPhone, the shallow depth of field video format that allows post-capture focus adjustment. The cinematic framework lets you render cinematic video with programmatically controlled focus points, change focus after recording, and integrate cinematic editing into your own video editor, used in video editing apps that want to support iPhone cinematic mode. Core Audio is the lowest-level audio framework on Apple platforms, a C-based API for working directly with audio hardware, audio streams, audio units, and the audio processing graph. It provides the lowest latency audio access available, I/O units that interface directly with the hardware, audio cues for asynchronous recording and playback, and the audio session configuration that underlies AVF Audio. Most developers use AVF Audio or Audio Toolbox. Core Audio is for professional audio apps, digital audio workstations, and any application that needs sub-millisecond latency control over audio, used in professional music and audio apps. Core Audio Kit provides pre-built Swift UI and UI Kit components for audio unit plugin interfaces, specifically the generic control panel and parameter views that a host app displays when a user edits an audio unit settings. Used in DAW Digital Audio Workstation, host apps and audio unit plugin apps that need standard OUI components. Core Audio Types defines the fundamental data structures used throughout all Core Audio APIs. Audio Stream Basic Description, which defines audio format, sample rate, bit depth, channel count, audio buffer list, audio timestamp, and so on. This framework is referenced by Core Audio, AVF Audio, Audio Toolbox, and Audio Unit. It's the shared type vocabulary for audio data on Apple platforms. Core Haptics provides a precise composable API for designing custom haptic feedback patterns on iPhone, going beyond the simple UI feedback generator vibrations to create rich, timed patterns of transient and continuous VIPTIC effects, synchronized with audio. You define haptic events with intensity, sharpness, and timing parameters, optionally synchronized with audio effects, and play them through CH Haptic Engine. Used in games, creative apps, and any experience that wants distinctive, designed haptic responses. Core Media defines the fundamental data types used by AV Foundation and other media frameworks. CM time for precise media timestamps, CM time range for time intervals, CM format description for describing audio and video formats, and CM sample buffer for the buffers that flow through media pipelines. When you're working with AV capture outputs, delegate callbacks, or writing to an AV asset writer, you're handling CM sample buffers from Core Media, used throughout the media stack. Core Media I/O is a Mac OS framework for building camera extensions, secure, sandboxed virtual camera drivers that appear as camera devices in the system, accessible from any app, FaceTime, Zoom, Chrome, as if they were physical cameras. This is how apps like Como, which streams iPhone camera to Mac, and virtual camera tools work, used in camera extension development for Mac OS. Core MIDI provides the system-level infrastructure for communicating with MIDI devices, sending and receiving MIDI messages, managing MIDI ports and endpoints, and working with MIDI network sessions over a local network. It's the low-level framework beneath any music app that works with MIDI instruments, sequencers, or controllers. used in digital audio workstations, synthesizer apps, MIDI controller apps, and music education tools. Device Discovery Extension provides an extension point for streaming media to a third-party device that a user selects in the system route picker, enabling you to add a custom streaming destination, your branded hardware or software player, that appears alongside AirPlay and Bluetooth in the system audio/video routing UI, used by hardware accessory makers and media streaming platform developers. Group Activities is the framework that powers SharePlay, enabling synchronized shared experiences across FaceTime calls. Multiple users on a FaceTime call can simultaneously watch the same video, listen to the same music, or play the same game, perfectly synchronized across their devices. Your app defines a group activity conforming type that represents the shared experience. The framework handles the coordination, transport, and state synchronization used in video, music, gaming, and any app that benefits from shared real-time experiences. HTTP Live Streaming, HLS, is Apple's adaptive bitrate streaming protocol for delivering audio and video over the internet, the technology behind every major streaming service that delivers to Apple devices. HLS breaks streams into small chunks at multiple bitrates, and the player automatically selects the appropriate bitrate based on network conditions. The HLS documentation covers the specification, playlist format, and best practices for stream creation. Your app plays HLS streams through AV Foundation's AV Player. Image Capture Core provides APIs for discovering and communicating with cameras and scanners connected to the Mac, DSLR cameras connected via USB, scanners, and image capture devices. You can browse the device's internal storage, download photos, and configure import settings. Used in photo import tools, digital asset management apps, and utilities that bridge between professional cameras and Mac workflows. Immersive Media Support provides APIs for reading and writing Apple Immersive Video Metadata, the extended metadata format for the spatial video format used by Apple Vision Pro's immersive viewing experience, used by video production tools and workflows that need to create or process Apple immersive video content. iTunes Library provides read-only access to the media in the user's iTunes, music, library, song metadata, album artwork, playlists, and media URLs. It's a Mac OS-only framework, relevant for apps that want to integrate with the user's locally stored music collection. On iOS, the music framework provides similar capabilities, used in DJ apps, music player alternatives, and audio tools on Mac OS. Locked Camera Capture enables your app's camera experience to function when the device is locked. For example, a quick capture camera app that you can launch and shoot a photo from the lock screen without unlocking the phone first. Your app extension runs with limited capabilities while locked, handling capture and saving the asset for full access later. Used in camera apps that prioritize quick capture. Media Accessibility provides APIs for respecting and controlling the user's system-wide media accessibility preferences, closed captions, audio descriptions, subtitle styling. It integrates with AV Foundation's media playback to surface captions in the user's preferred font size and color, and ensures that audio description tracks are selected automatically for visually impaired users, used in any video streaming or media app that needs to provide accessible playback. Media Extension allows developers to create format readers, video decoders, and RAW processor plugins for the system media stack, so a custom video format or RAW image format your app supports becomes available system-wide to any app using AV Foundation or Core Image, used by professional video and photography tool developers who work with proprietary or specialized media formats. Media Library framework on Mac OS provides read-only access to the user's multimedia content across all their media libraries, Photos, iTunes, iMovie, Aperture, and third-party libraries that participate in the system. It provides a unified browsing interface for the user's entire media collection, used in creative apps on Mac OS that source content from any of the user's media libraries. Media Player provides access to the device's music library on iOS, browsing songs, albums, artists, playlists, picking media items, and controlling system playback. It also provides the Now Playing Info Center for updating the lock screen and control center playback information, current track, elapsed time, playback controls, used in music player apps, workout apps, podcast apps, and any app that controls or integrates with system audio playback. Media Setup enables users to configure HomePod speakers to stream music directly from your media service, bypassing the iPhone as an intermediary and letting HomePod act as a direct streaming endpoint for your service, used by audio streaming services that want HomePod integration. Media Toolbox provides the server-side media processing layer, enabling support for custom media format readers via Media Extension, and Audio Tap Processing, MT Audio Processing Tap, which lets you attach a callback to an AV mixer node to access and process the mixed audio stream in real time, used in professional audio apps that need real-time audio access during playback. Music Kit provides a Swift API for integrating your app with Apple Music, searching the Apple Music catalog, playing songs and playlists, accessing the user's Apple Music library, handling playback in apps authorized by the user. It builds on the Apple Music API and provides native Swift types for tracks, albums, playlists, and music player state, used in music apps, workout apps, and any app that wants to incorporate Apple Music streaming. MusicKit.js is the JavaScript equivalent of MusicKit, a JavaScript library for integrating Apple Music catalog search and playback into web pages. It provides the same catalog browsing and playback control capabilities as the native MusicKit framework, but for web apps running in a browser, used in web-based music apps and websites that want Apple Music integration. Phase, Physical Audio Spatialization Engine, is a high-level spatial audio framework for games and apps. It models the acoustic properties of a virtual environment, reverb, occlusion, geometry-based propagation, and spatializes audio sources in 3D space relative to the listener. Rather than manually computing audio DSP effects, you define an acoustic environment, and Phase handles the physics-based simulation, used in Vision OS apps, ARKit experiences, and 3D games that need realistic spatial audio. PhotoKit provides full access to the user's photo and video library, the assets managed by the Photos app, including iCloud Photos and Live Photos. You can fetch assets with queries, request image or video data at specific sizes, edit assets non-destructively with editing extensions, observe library changes in real time, and create and modify albums. PhotoKit requires user permission per access level, add-only, read-write, used in photo editing, camera, media browsing, and creative apps. Professional Video Applications provides a framework for exchanging data with Final Cut Pro and Motion, and for creating effects and plugins, generator, filter, and transition plugins for Final Cut Pro and Motion. If you're building a professional video tool that integrates with Apple's Pro Video applications, this framework defines the plugin API, used in professional video post-production tool development. Quick Look Thumbnailing provides the extension point for generating thumbnail images of custom file types. Your app can register a thumbnail extension that the system calls when it needs a thumbnail for one of your app's file formats in Finder, Files, Quick Look Previews, used alongside the Quick Look Preview extension when you want both thumbnail and full preview support for custom file types. Screen Capture Kit provides high-performance, low-latency screen capture on Mac OS, streaming specific windows, screens, or applications as video frames that your app can process or encode. It supports fine-grained filtering, excludes certain windows, capture a specific app only, hardware-accelerated encoding, and captures at full display resolution including HDR content. Used in screen recording apps, remote desktop tools, meeting software, and any Mac OS app that needs to capture screen content. Screensaver is the Mac OS framework for building custom screensavers that integrate into Mac OS's screensaver infrastructure, appearing in system settings, running when the user's Mac is idle, and deactivating cleanly when the user returns. Your screensaver is a bundle loaded into the screensaver engine process, used by developers who want to create and distribute custom Mac OS screensavers. Shazam Kit enables your app to identify music and audio by matching a snippet against Shazam's vast audio fingerprint catalog or against a custom catalog of audio you provide. You record a few seconds of audio and Shazam Kit returns the track metadata, title, artist, album, artwork, and more. Your app can also build a custom catalog for matching proprietary audio for interactive experiences synchronized to live audio or broadcast content, used in media, entertainment, social, and interactive content apps. Siri Kit Cloud Media enables users to ask Siri to play music from your streaming service directly on HomePod speakers, with Siri routing the audio request to your service's cloud streaming endpoint. It's the Siri voice interface for HomePod media playback from third-party services, used by music and audio streaming services that want Siri voice control on HomePod. Sound Analysis provides on-device classification of sounds from an audio file or microphone stream, identifying over 300 sound classes like speech, dog barking, alarm, glass breaking, baby crying, and many more. It uses a Core ML model under the hood, running on device. You can also supply your own Core ML sound classifier model, used in accessibility apps, alerting deaf users to important sounds, smart home apps, health monitoring, and security systems. Video Toolbox provides direct access to hardware-accelerated video encoding and decoding on Apple devices, encoding raw video frames to compressed formats H, 264, HEVC, ProRes, and decoding compressed video to RAW frames, all using the hardware video encoder/decoder present in Apple Silicon. This is the lowest level video processing API, below AV Foundation's higher level abstractions, used in professional video encoding tools, video streaming apps that need custom encoding pipelines, and any app requiring hardware-accelerated video processing at frame level. Video Subscriber Account provides the TV Everywhere authentication framework, allowing users to sign in to a video streaming app using their pay TV provider credentials, cable or satellite subscription, granting access to live TV channels and on-demand content included in their subscription. Integrates with the TV Apps channel system, used in cable/satellite TV apps and live streaming services that authenticate via TV provider subscriptions. Apple Ads, formerly iAd in this context, refers to the Apple Ads Campaign Management API, a REST API for programmatically creating and managing Apple Search ads campaigns, ad groups, keywords, and creative sets. It's the automation layer above the Apple Search ads web dashboard, enabling agencies and large advertisers to manage campaigns at scale, used by marketing technology platforms and large-scale app advertisers. Apple Music Feed provides bulk access to the Apple Music catalog, artist information, albums, tracks, editorial content for processing at scale. It's an API for content partners and data services that need to work with large swaths of the Apple Music catalog rather than searching for individual items, used by music data analytics, editorial, and discovery services. Apple News provides the tooling for designing, creating, and publishing content for Apple News, using News Publisher and the Apple News format, a JSON-based article format with layout and style capabilities. Publishers can integrate their CMS with Apple News using the Apple News API to automate article publishing, used by media publishers and content creators distributing editorial content through Apple News. Assets Library is the legacy, deprecated, iOS framework for accessing the user's photo and video library. It's been replaced by PhotoKit, which provides a much richer, change-observable API. Assets Library is included here for completeness since it appears in the documentation index, but developers should use PhotoKit for all new development. Audio Toolbox provides mid-level audio APIs, audio queue services for buffered audio recording and playback, audio file services for reading and writing audio files, extended audio file services for format conversion during reading/writing, and the music player for MIDI sequencing. It sits between Core Audio's hardware-level C API and AV Foundation's high-level Objective-C/Swift API, used in audio apps that need more control than AVF Audio provides, but don't need Core Audio's full complexity. Audio Unit is the plugin architecture for modular audio processing on Apple platforms, the standard for building and hosting audio effects, instruments, and mixing plugins in digital audio workstation apps. An audio unit is a self-contained processing module with audio inputs, outputs, and parameters. The framework covers both the hosting side, loading and managing plugins in a DAW, and the plugin side, building and that other apps can load, used in professional audio apps and DAW development. Accelerate is a collection of high-performance mathematical computation libraries, BLAS and LAPACK for linear algebra, VDSB for signal processing, FFT, convolutions, vector arithmetic, vimage for image processing, and compression. All routines are SIMD-optimized for Apple's CPUs, processing data orders of magnitude faster than equivalent loop-based code. Accelerate is used internally by Core ML, Core Image, and many other system frameworks. Developers use it for scientific computing, signal processing, audio DSP, and any large-scale numerical computation. SIMD is a Swift and Clang module providing types and operations for small vector and matrix math, SIMD2, SIMD3, SIMD4 vectors, float2x2, float4x4 matrices, quaternions, and associated arithmetic and geometric operations. It's SIMD intrinsic math expressed in a clean Swift API, used throughout metal shaders, on the CPU side, RealityKit, RKit, and any 3D math. The SIMD module is the modern replacement for the matrix utilities in GLKit and SceneKit. Accessory Setup Kit enables a privacy-preserving discovery and configuration flow for Bluetooth and Wi-Fi accessories. Your app can find and pair a nearby accessory without requiring broad Bluetooth or local network permissions. The user approves a specific accessory by name in a system sheet, and your app receives access only to that device. Used in apps that connect to proprietary accessories and want a streamlined, privacy-respecting setup experience. Accessory Transport Extension provides a secure mechanism for transferring data between an iPhone app and a connected third-party accessory. the data transfer layer for custom hardware communication beyond standard Bluetooth or USB protocols, used in companion apps for specialized hardware accessories. Account and organizational data sharing provides APIs for users to authorize apps and websites to access information about them stored on Apple's REST services, organizational identity data, entitlements, and account information, used in enterprise and organizational identity scenarios where apps need to verify or access an employee or student's Apple-managed account attributes. The Apple Silicon documentation covers the resources and guidance for developers optimizing or porting software to Macs with Apple Silicon, the M-series chips. This includes information about the Rosetta 2 translation layer for running Intel binaries, the unified memory architecture, performance and efficiency cores, and the tools for building universal binaries that run natively on both Apple Silicon and Intel. Essential reading for Mac OS developers targeting M-series Macs. Apple Archive provides multithreaded lossless compression of directories, files, and data using Apple's LZFSE compression format, with support for preserving Mac OS metadata like extended attributes and file resource forks. It's significantly faster than gzip for Apple-generated data and produces smaller archives for typical app payloads, used in backup utilities, software distribution tools, and any Mac OS app that needs efficient archiving. App Tracking Transparency, AT, is the framework through which your app requests permission to track the user across apps and websites owned by other companies for advertising purposes. Since iOS 14.5, this permission is required before you can access the advertising identifier or share user data with ad networks for cross-app tracking. The ATT prompt shows once per app and must be shown before any tracking begins, used by any app that employs advertising tracking. Audio Driver Kit is a driver kit-based framework for building user-space audio device drivers that make virtual or physical audio hardware appear as core audio devices to the system. Because driver kit drivers run in user space, they don't require kernel extensions, improving system stability and security. Used by developers creating virtual audio interfaces, USB audio drivers, and custom audio hardware. Authentication Services provides the modern authentication infrastructure, Sign In with Apple, the privacy-focused single sign-on backed by Apple account, web authentication via as web authentication session, and in-process secure browser for OAuth flows, and passkey/password management APIs via as authorization controller. It's the recommended framework for all authentication in Apple apps. Sign In with Apple is required if your app offers other social sign-in options, used in any app with user accounts and sign-in flows. Block Storage Device Driver Kit extends Driver Kit for building user space drivers for block storage devices, custom storage hardware that communicates via proprietary protocols and needs to appear as a disk to the system, used by storage hardware manufacturers building Mac OS drivers. CF Network is a low-level C API for networking, managing TCP connections, HTTP requests, proxies, and network configuration. It's the networking foundation that URL Session and the network framework build on. Most developers use URL Session for HTTP networking, but CF Network is relevant for legacy code, specific proxy configuration needs, and for understanding what happens under the hood, used in network utilities and legacy networking code. Collaboration provides Mac OS APIs for finding and accessing identities, users and groups in directory services, and displaying the identity picker, the system UI for selecting a user, group, or computer from the directory, used in Mac OS apps that need to assign access rights, share documents with specific users, or query organizational directories, Active Directory, Open Directory, LDAP. Compression provides a unified Swift and C API for common lossless compression algorithms, LZ4 Fast, LZFSE, Apple's algorithm, Good Balance, LZMA, High Compression Ratio, and zlib. You choose the algorithm based on your speed versus size trade-off needs. For data that stays on Apple hardware, LZFSE is typically the best choice. For interoperability with other systems, zlib is universal, used in data storage, caching, and network transmission scenarios. Core Bluetooth is the framework for communicating with Bluetooth Low Energy, BLE, and classic Bluetooth devices. You scan for peripherals, connect, discover services and characteristics, and exchange data. Core Bluetooth works in both central mode, your device connects to a peripheral like a heart rate monitor, and peripheral mode, your device acts as a Bluetooth accessory that other devices can connect to, used in health monitors, fitness equipment, smart home accessories, EOT, and any app that communicates with Bluetooth hardware. Core HID provides APIs for interacting with human interface devices, keyboards, mice, game controllers, drawing tablets, and other HID-class USB and Bluetooth devices at the Mac OS system level. Unlike Game Controller, which normalizes input from multiple controller types, Core HID gives you raw access to HID reports from any device. Used in input device utilities, accessibility tools, and custom hardware integration on Mac OS. Core NFC enables iPhone to read NFC tags, specifically, NFC Data Exchange Format, NDEF messages from NFC tags embedded in products, posters, and cards. You present a scanning sheet, the user brings the iPhone near a tag, and your app receives the NDEF records. On iOS 13 and later, you can also read certain tag types natively and write to writable tags. Used in retail, ticketing, identity, supply chain, and marketing apps. Core Services is a Mac OS umbrella framework for key operating system services, launch services, for opening files and URLs with their associated apps, file metadata spotlight indexing, uniform type identifiers, at the system level, and pasteboard. It's the foundation of several Mac OS behaviors that apps depend on, like open with menus and Finder file associations, used in Mac OS document apps and utilities. Core Telephony provides read-only access to the device's cellular service information, the carrier name, mobile country code, mobile network code, and whether the carrier allows VoIP over cellular. It can also notify your app when a cellular call begins or ends. Used in carrier-specific apps, communication apps that need to detect active calls, and network diagnostics tools. Core WLAN provides APIs for querying airport Wi-Fi, interfaces on Mac scanning for available networks, reading the current association's SSID and BSID, reading signal strength, and joining networks programmatically. Used in Wi-Fi management utilities, network diagnostics tools, and enterprise IT management apps on Mac OS. CryptoKit is Apple's modern Swift-native cryptography framework, providing safe, high-level APIs for hashing, SHA-256, SHA-512, message authentication, HMAC, symmetric encryption, AES-GCM, CHA-20 1305, and asymmetric cryptography, P256, P384, P521. Curve 25519. It uses Apple's hardware-accelerated cryptography where available and is designed to be hard to misuse. You can't accidentally use insecure parameters. Used in any app that needs to encrypt data, verify signatures, or hash passwords. The starting point for all new cryptography on Apple platforms. Crypto Token Kit provides access to smart cards, security tokens, and the Secure Enclave, cryptographic hardware that stores keys and performs operations like signing and decryption without exposing the private key material. It allows your app to use hardware-backed keys for authentication and signing, and supports pluggable token extensions. Used in enterprise identity, PKI, and security-critical applications. Darwin Notify provides a publish-subscribe mechanism for low-level system notifications using the Darwin Notification Center, a global system-wide message bus. Processes can post named notifications and subscribe to them with very low overhead, often used for communicating between processes, like between a daemon and its UI app, or for detecting system state changes. Used in system utilities, background daemons, and inter-process communication. Device Discovery UI provides a system UI component for TV OS apps to discover and connect to a nearby iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch over the local network, presenting a sheet that shows nearby devices and invites the user to connect. Used in TV OS games and apps that want to use a nearby iPhone as a controller or input device. Device management covers the framework and REST APIs that mobile device management solutions use to manage Apple devices remotely, enrolling devices, pushing configuration profiles, installing apps, querying device state, wiping devices, and managing security policies. This is the technology behind corporate MDM products like Jamf, Mosel, and Microsoft Intune, used by MDM solution developers and enterprise IT infrastructure tools. Disk arbitration provides mechanisms for Mac OS apps to register callbacks when disks are mounted or unmounted, and to optionally block or approve those events. Your app can intercept disk mount events before the system processes them, inspect the disk's properties, and decide whether to allow the mount. Used in disk management utilities, backup apps, and security tools on Mac OS. Dispatch Grand Central Dispatch is the system's foundational concurrency library. It provides dispatch queues, serial and concurrent, for executing blocks asynchronously, semaphores, groups, dispatch sources for event monitoring, and timers. While Swift concurrency, async/await, is now the preferred concurrency model for new code, dispatch remains the underlying mechanism that the system uses throughout and is still appropriate for certain low-level concurrency tasks, used throughout the Apple ecosystem as the foundational concurrency primitive. DNSSD, DNS Service Discovery, provides APIs for registering services on the local network so other devices can discover them, browsing for available services, and resolving service names to host names and ports. It's the underlying technology behind Bonjour, used in any app that needs peer-to-peer service discovery on a local network, printers, shared music, game lobbies, and custom services. DriverKit is Apple's framework for building device drivers that run entirely in user space rather than the kernel, improving system stability and security by ensuring that a faulty driver can't crash the entire OS. DriverKit drivers communicate with hardware via I/O kit in the kernel, but execute their logic in a sandboxed user space process. Multiple specialized subframeworks extend DriverKit for specific hardware categories: USB, audio, HID, serial, networking, storage, PCIe, used by hardware peripheral manufacturers building Mac OS drivers. Endpoint security enables the creation of Mac OS system extensions that observe and optionally block system events, file access, process execution, network connections, kernel events, for security monitoring purposes. Your extension subscribes to events and can respond synchronously to allow or block them. This is the API that commercial endpoint detection and response editor and antivirus tools use. Requires a specific entitlement and Apple review. Used in security software, DLP tools, and enterprise endpoint protection products. Exception handling provides APIs for monitoring and catching Objective-C exceptions, the NS exception-based exception mechanism that predates Swift's error handling. In modern Swift code, you use thrown errors, not exceptions, but the exception handling framework is relevant for interoperability with legacy Objective-C code and for crash reporting tools that need to catch uncaught exceptions before the process terminates. Used in crash reporting SDKs and legacy Objective-C codebases. Execution policy provides APIs for developer tools, specifically tools that need to execute code they've downloaded or built locally, to request exceptions to Mac OS's execution policy restrictions. For example, a debugger or a build tool needs to execute arbitrary binaries. Execution policy provides the mechanism to request this capability securely, used in developer tool applications on Mac OS. Exposure notification is the COVID-19 contact tracing framework, built jointly by Apple and Google, that powers national exposure notification apps. It uses Bluetooth to exchange anonymous tokens with nearby devices. If a person tests positive, their tokens are uploaded and matched against tokens stored on other devices, triggering anonymous exposure notifications. It's privacy-preserving by design. Apple never knows who was near whom. Health authority apps in many countries are built on this framework. External accessory provides communication with accessories connected to an iOS or iPad OS device via the Lightning or USB-C port or Bluetooth. Specifically, accessories that use the made for iPhone MFI protocol. Your app communicates with the accessory through streams. Used in companion apps for medical devices, industrial sensors, audio interfaces, and other Lightning/USB-C accessories. Finder Sync is a Mac OS app extension that lets your app integrate with Finder, adding badges, custom context menu items, and toolbar buttons to files and folders that your app manages. The canonical use case is a cloud sync app like Dropbox showing sync state badges, the green checkmark or spinning indicator, on files in Finder. Used in cloud storage, version control, and file synchronization apps on Mac OS. Force feedback is the Mac OS API for controlling force feedback, rumble/vibration, in gaming hardware, joysticks, steering wheels, and other HFD-class force feedback devices. It also provides the plugin interface for developing drivers for new force feedback hardware, used in games and simulation apps that use force feedback controllers on Mac OS. FSKit provides the framework for implementing file systems in user space on Mac OS, creating file systems that the OS can mount and that work transparently with Finder, Terminal, and all other apps. Because FSKit file systems run in user space rather than the kernel, they're safer and easier to develop than traditional kernel-level file system drivers, used by developers implementing custom or cross-platform file systems for Mac OS. GSS, Generic Security Services, provides the APIs for Kerberos authentication and Espinigo negotiation, used in enterprise network authentication, scenarios, Active Directory, corporate networks. It's the underlying framework for authenticating with services that use Kerberos, NTLM, or similar enterprise identity protocols, used in enterprise-focused Mac OS apps that authenticate to corporate network services. HID Driver Kit extends Driver Kit for building user space HID device drivers, keyboards, mice, drawing tablets, game controllers, and other human interface devices. Your driver runs in user space and communicates with the HID subsystem, appearing to apps as a standard HID device. used by hardware manufacturers building Mac OS drivers for HID class devices. Hypervisor provides a lightweight virtualization API that allows your Mac OS app to create and manage virtual machines without requiring kernel extensions. You can create virtual CPUs, map memory, and run a guest operating system inside your app's process. It's the foundation that parallels desktop, VMware Fusion, and the virtualization framework built on, used in virtualization software and security research tools on Mac OS. Input Method Kit provides the framework for building custom input methods on Mac OS, software keyboards, character input systems, handwriting recognition, and language input methods that appear in the Input Sources menu. Your input method communicates with the currently focused app to insert text and manage the candidate window. Used by developers building keyboard input methods for languages and scripts not supported by built-in Mac OS keyboards. I/O Bluetooth provides user space access to Bluetooth Classic, BR/EDR devices on Mac OS, connecting to Bluetooth serial profiles, hands-free profiles, and other classic Bluetooth services. For BLE devices and cross-platform Bluetooth, Core Bluetooth is preferred. I/O Bluetooth is Mac OS only and focuses on classic Bluetooth protocols, used in Mac OS apps that communicate with legacy Bluetooth devices. I/O Bluetooth UI provides the pre-built Mac OS UI for Bluetooth device pairing, the device picker panel that lets users browse discovered Bluetooth devices and initiate pairing, used alongside I/O Bluetooth when your Mac OS app needs a standard device selection UI. I/O Kit is the low-level framework for accessing hardware devices and their kernel drivers from user space applications on Mac OS. Through I/O Kit, you can query the I/O registry, the hierarchy of all hardware and drivers in the system, and communicate with device drivers directly. I/O Kit is the foundation that most hardware interfacing frameworks, Core Bluetooth, Core HID, Audio Toolbox hardware access, build on internally, used in hardware utilities, diagnostics tools, and apps that need direct device access on Mac OS. I/O Surface provides a mechanism for sharing hardware-accelerated buffer data, frame buffers, textures, and other GPU resources between multiple processes without copying. When a metal texture or core video pixel buffer is shared between a renderer process and a display process, I/O Surface is the underlying shared memory management, used in video pipelines, camera apps, and any multi-process architecture that needs to share GPU buffers efficiently. I/O's Host allows your user space app or driver kit driver to communicate directly with USB devices in host mode, sending and receiving USB transfers, bulk, interrupt, isochronous, without a specific device driver, used in apps that communicate with custom or specialty USB devices that don't have a dedicated driver. Kernel, and specifically the kernel framework I/O Kit subset, is the framework for developing kernel-resident device drivers and kernel extensions, KEXs, on Mac OS. Kernel extensions run at the highest privilege level and can destabilize the system if they have bugs. Apple is deprecating kernel extensions in favor of driver kit user space drivers. Kernel extension development is now only appropriate for capabilities that cannot be implemented in user space, used in legacy low-level hardware drivers and security software requiring kernel access. Latent semantic mapping is a machine learning framework for text classification using a statistical technique that maps words and documents into a semantic vector space, grouping semantically similar content together. It's an older approach to NLP that predates transformer-based models. Newer apps typically use natural languages neural models or core ML. Latent semantic mapping is relevant for legacy classification code and for simple, resource-constrained text categorization tasks. Lightweight code requirements provides APIs for testing the identity and integrity of executable code, verifying that a process on disk or running in memory was signed by a specific team, has a specific bundle identifier, or meets other security criteria, used in security tools, endpoint protection software, and apps that need to verify the authenticity of code they are about to load or communicate with. Local authentication provides the APIs for authenticating users biometrically, Face ID, Touch ID, or by asking for their device passcode. You present an authentication reason to the user, and the framework handles the hardware interaction and returns success or failure. Local authentication is commonly used to gate access to sensitive content within an app, re-authenticate to view a password, unlock a note, or authorize a transaction. Used in password managers, banking apps, health apps, and any app with sensitive content. Local authentication embedded UI provides a standard icon component for showing the Face ID or Touch ID icon inline in a custom authentication view. For apps that build their own biometric authentication UI rather than using the standard system authentication prompt. Metric Kit delivers aggregated, per-device performance and crash diagnostics directly from the OS to your app. Battery drain, CPU usage, memory use, disk I/O, launch times, hang rate, and full crash reports with symbolicated stack traces, without requiring users to share their device with Apple. Metric Kit reports arrive once per day in your app's delegate, used by any app that wants to monitor real-world performance and crash data from production users. MIDI Driver Kit extends Driver Kit for building user space drivers for MIDI devices, enabling your MIDI hardware to be recognized by Core MIDI and appear in DAWs and music apps without requiring a kernel extension. Used by MIDI hardware manufacturers building Mac OS-compatible device drivers. ML Compute is the framework that accelerates machine learning training and inference by distributing work across the CPU and one or more GPUs. It provides a computation graph API for tensor operations used in training neural networks. In practice, most developers use Create ML, Core ML, or MPS Graph rather than ML Compute directly. Those frameworks use ML Compute internally, used in advanced ML research and custom training implementations on Mac OS. Nearby Interaction uses the ultra-wideband chip in iPhone and Apple Watch to measure precise distance and direction to other UWB-capable devices, accuracy to within centimeters, with direction. This is distinct from Bluetooth proximity, which is coarse. Nearby Interaction enables experiences like finding a specific person in a crowd, spatial AR interactions between two devices, and hands-free unlocking of UWB-capable smart locks, used in AR experiences, smart accessories, and location precision apps. Network is Apple's modern Swift networking framework, providing TCP and UDP connections, TLS, QUIC, and WebSockets through a type-safe, asynchrony API. It replaces CF network for direct socket-level networking, with better Swift integration and built-in support for modern protocols. For most HTTP networking, URL session remains the right choice. Network is for custom protocols, UDP, low-level TCP, and WebSocket connections, used in multiplayer games, custom protocol clients, and any app that needs non-HTTP networking. Network Extension enables Mac OS and iOS apps to implement custom network configurations, VPN clients, both packet tunnel and app proxy VPN, content filters, DNS proxy providers, and Wi-Fi hotspot helpers. It's the framework behind virtually every third-party VPN app and parental-controlled DNS filter on Apple platforms. Requires specific entitlements, and for some extension types, a system extension that the user approves installing. Used in VPN apps, security apps, and enterprise network management tools. Networking Driver Kit extends Driver Kit for building user space Ethernet networking drivers, enabling a custom USB or PCIe Ethernet adapter to appear as a network interface on Mac OS without a kernel extension. Used by networking hardware manufacturers building Mac OS drivers. Open Directory provides Mac OS APIs for authenticating users and searching directory services, LDAP directories, Active Directory, and the local Mac OS Open Directory node. You can query for users, groups, computers, and other directory records and verify credentials. Used in enterprise Mac OS apps that integrate with corporate identity infrastructure. The OS framework provides the low-level APIs for logging, signposting, and unified structured logging that all Apple system frameworks use. OS Log is the primary logging API, outputting structured, filterable log messages that appear in console, app, and in the Xcode debugging console, categorized by subsystem and category. OS Signpost provides performance tracing markers that instruments uses to visualize activity timelines, used in every app for logging and performance analysis. OS Log provides the Swift native API for reading historical log entries from the unified logging system, querying the system log store for past events matching specific criteria. This is the programmatic interface to the log data that console, app displays, useful for building diagnostic tools, crash analyzers, and log viewers that need to access historical system and app log data. Distinct from OS Log, which writes to the log, OS Log reads from it. Paravirtualized Graphics provides a guest-side graphics driver for virtual machines running on Apple Silicon, enabling hardware-accelerated graphics within a VM hosted by the virtualization framework. The guest OS sees a virtual GPU that is backed by the host Mac's Metal hardware, used by virtualization software developers who want GPU-accelerated graphics in their virtual machines. PCI Driver Kit extends Driver Kit for building user space drivers for PCIe devices, the expansion cards and internal components connected via the PCIe bus, such as custom compute accelerators, frame grabbers, and specialized I/O cards, used by PCIe hardware manufacturers developing Mac OS drivers. SCSI Peripherals Driver Kit extends driver kit for building user space drivers for SCSI block command and multimedia command protocol devices, external storage drives, optical drives, and other SCSI class peripherals, used by storage hardware manufacturers developing Mac OS drivers. SCSI Controller Driver Kit extends driver kit for building user space drivers for SCSI protocol controllers, the host bus adapters and RAID cards that communicate with SCSI devices, used by storage controller manufacturers developing Mac OS drivers. Security is the comprehensive iOS and Mac OS framework for securing data, the keychain, storing passwords, keys, and certificates securely, certificate evaluation and trust, code signing verification, random number generation, and access control. The keychain is the most frequently used component. You store sensitive credentials in the keychain rather than user defaults and retrieve them with biometric or passcode authentication, used in every app that handles passwords, cryptographic keys, or certificates. Security Foundation, SEC Foundation on Mac OS, provides the mandatory access control, Mac framework for restricting user access to particular features in a Mac app or daemon, defining policies about what operations are permitted, used in Mac OS utilities and system software that need fine-grained authorization control beyond the standard Unix permissions model. Security Interface provides pre-built Mac OS UI components for security workflows, certificate viewers, authorization dialogues, and trust configuration panels, used in Mac OS apps that present certificates to users or ask for elevated authorization privileges via the Authorization Services UI. Sensor Kit provides access to data from sensors on iPhone and paired Apple Watch, ambient light, device usage, on-wrist detection, keyboard metrics, speech metrics, and other passive behavioral signals. Sensor Kit data requires research entitlement and user consent. It's designed for research studies rather than general consumer apps, used in academic research and clinical study apps. Serial Driver Kit extends driver kit for building user space drivers for serial I/O devices, RS-232, RS-485, and other serial communication interfaces connected to Mac, used by industrial and scientific instrument manufacturers building Mac OS connectivity software. Service Management provides the Mac OS API for registering and managing launch agents and launch daemons, background processes that launch automatically at login or system boot. It's the modern, sandboxed alternative to directly modifying launch daemon lists with user approval for persistent background processes, used in any Mac OS app that needs to run a background process reliably across reboots. System is a Swift framework that provides low-level, type-safe file operation APIs, open, close, read, write, seek, stat, that wrap Unix system calls in Swift-friendly interfaces. It's the Swift equivalent of calling POSIX directly, with proper error handling and Swift types, used in performance-critical file, I/O code, and systems programming in Swift. System Configuration provides Mac OS APIs for accessing and monitoring the device's network configuration, current network interfaces, proxy settings, IP addresses, DNS servers, and system preferences. It can notify your app when network configuration changes, for example, when the user connects to a new Wi-Fi network, used in network management utilities, VPN clients, and any Mac OS app that needs to react to network configuration changes. System Extensions is the framework for installing and managing user space extensions that extend Mac OS capabilities, specifically network extension system extensions, VPN, content filters, endpoint security extensions, and driver kit extensions. The user approves installation of system extensions via system settings. System extensions replaced kernel extensions for many use cases, used alongside network extension, endpoint security, and driver kit. Thread Network provides APIs for setting up and managing thread-based smart device networks using a Thread border router, a device that connects the Thread mesh network to the IP network. Thread is a low-power mesh networking protocol used by many Matter-compatible smart home devices, used in smart home apps that support Thread accessories and border router configuration. Uniform Type Identifiers, UTI, are Apple's system for identifying file types and data types, a hierarchical identifier system where every format has a string identifier, like public, JPEG, COM, Adobe, PDF or COM, MyCompany, MyFormat, a declared conformance hierarchy, JPEG conforms to public, image which conforms to public, data, and associated file extensions and MIME types. The Uniform Type Identifiers framework provides Swift native types, UT type, for working with UTIs, used in any app that handles files, drag and drop, or copy-paste. USB Driver Kit extends driver kit for building user space USB device drivers. making custom USB hardware appear to the system in whatever device class is appropriate: storage, audio, serial, HID, or custom. Used by USB device manufacturers building Mac OS drivers. USB Serial Driver Kit extends driver kit specifically for USB to serial adapter devices, the dongles and cables that convert USB to RS-232 for legacy serial device compatibility on modern Macs. Used by accessory manufacturers and developers building Mac OS drivers for USB serial adapters. Virtualization is Apple's high-level framework for creating and running virtual machines on Mac OS, both Mac OS VMs, which run the same architecture and can be fast, and Linux VMs. It's built on the hypervisor framework but provides a much higher-level API. You configure RAM, CPU count, disk images, network adapters, and displays without low-level VM programming. Apple's own Mac OS virtual machine in Xcode for testing and the open-source UTM project use this framework, used in development tools, CI environments, and security sandboxes. VNet provides the networking interface for virtual machines, allowing VMs running via the hypervisor or virtualization framework to read and write network packets on the host Mac's network interfaces. It provides both bridged sharing the host interface and NAT private network modes, used alongside the virtualization framework in VM software. Wi-Fi infrastructure provides APIs for securely sharing Wi-Fi network credentials between devices and connected accessories, enabling your app to configure a Wi-Fi accessory to join the home network without the user typing the password into the accessory. Used in Smart Home Accessory Companion apps that configure wireless connectivity. XBC is Apple's lightweight interprocess communication mechanism, a type-safe message passing system for sending structured data between processes on Mac OS, iOS, and other Apple platforms. XBC services run in separate sandbox processes, isolating your app's modules from each other. Many Mac OS apps use XBC to separate privilege-escalated operations into a separate helper process while keeping the main app sandboxed. System extensions, driver kit drivers, and many first-party Apple services communicate via XBC internally. Sign In with Apple provides a privacy-focused single sign-on system that web developers and app developers implement to let users create accounts and sign in using their Apple account. Unlike other social sign-in providers, Sign In with Apple requires no tracking, generates unique relay email addresses to protect the user's real email, and includes built-in two-factor authentication via the Apple account. If your iOS or Mac OS app offers any other social sign-in method, Sign In with Apple is required by App Store guidelines. The web implementation uses OAuth 2.0 and OpenID Connect, used in any service with user authentication. Apple Pay on the web enables websites served over HTTPS to accept Apple Pay payments using JavaScript. After domain verification, your page presents an Apple Pay button. When the user clicks it and authenticates with Face ID or Touch ID on their device, a payment token is returned to your JavaScript for server-side processing. The integration works across Safari on iPhone, iPad, and Mac, used in e-commerce websites and any web checkout flow that wants to offer Apple Pay. This REST API handles the server-side merchant registration that Apple Pay on the web requires, verifying that your web domain is authorized to request Apple Pay payments, and initiating the merchant session object that your JavaScript presents to the Apple Pay sheet, used as the backend for any Apple Pay on the web integration. The Merchant Token Management API enables you to retrieve and manage merchant payment tokens, the persistent payment representations created when a user chooses Apple Pay with automatic renewal for a subscription. Instead of a one-time payment token, merchant tokens represent an ongoing payment relationship that persists across card number changes, used in subscription businesses that process ongoing payments via Apple Pay. This API allows you to add contextual details about how your merchant tokens are being used, for transparency reporting to Apple about your merchant token usage patterns, part of the token management ecosystem for Apple Pay merchant integrations. The Apple Music API is a REST API for integrating Apple Music catalog data into your web app, searching songs, albums, artists, playlists, and editorial content, reading the user's Apple Music library and playlists with authorization, and controlling Apple Music playback via MusicKit.js. It uses JWT-based authentication and returns JSON, used in web-based music apps, music discovery services, and any web experience that integrates Apple Music. App Store Connect API, also listed under Developer Tools, Cross-Reference, is a REST API for automating App Store Connect tasks from any environment, CI systems, command line scripts, web dashboards, covered in detail in the Developer Tools section, listed here because it's also a web-facing API. Browser Engine Core is the low-level framework for implementing an alternative browser engine on iOS, the C-level APIs for integrating a custom rendering engine into the operating system's browser process model, available in the EU under regulatory compliance, used by developers building fully custom browser engines for iOS. Browser Engine Kit is the higher-level Swift framework built on Browser Engine Core for integrating a custom web browser engine into your browser app. It provides process isolation, rendering integration with UI Kit, and the helper process architecture required for a secure multi-process browser, used by browser vendors building alternative rendering engine browsers for iOS. CloudKit.js is a JavaScript library that provides access to your app's CloudKit containers from a web browser, reading and writing records, querying databases, and authenticating users via their Apple account, all from a web app. Enables web-based companion experiences to your iOS or Mac OS apps' CloudKit data, used in web apps that share a CloudKit backend with native Apple apps. CKTool.js is a JavaScript library for managing CloudKit containers and databases from JavaScript, a tool-level API for configuration and administration tasks, distinct from the user data access that CloudKit.js provides, used in development tooling and CloudKit database management scripts. Link Presentation provides APIs for fetching and displaying rich link previews, the card-style preview of a URL that shows the page title, favicon, thumbnail, and description. LP-link metadata can be fetched from a URL and then displayed using LP-link view. Messages uses this framework for the link previews in conversations, used in messaging, social, and content apps that display URLs with rich previews. Live Photos Kit.js is a JavaScript library for playing live photos on the web, the brief animations you get when you long press a live photo on iPhone. It renders a live photo, composed of a still image and a short video, in a browser, with the standard live photo playback behavior, used in web photo galleries and services that want to display iPhone live photos natively. MapKit.js is Apple's JavaScript library for embedding interactive Apple Maps into web pages, with annotations, overlays, geocoding, local search, and standard map and satellite views. It's the web equivalent of the native MapKit framework. After providing a private key for authentication, your website can embed Apple Maps with the same tiles and data as the native iOS Maps app, used in web apps that need mapping and location features. Maps Web Snapshots is a REST API that generates a static map image from a URL specifying center coordinates, zoom, size, map type, and optional annotations. The resulting PNG can be embedded in emails, web pages, or any context where an interactive map isn't appropriate, used in email confirmations, social share cards, and any context that needs a static map image. The Notary API is a REST API for submitting Mac OS software to Apple's notarization service, the automated security scan that Apple requires for all Mac OS software distributed outside the Mac App Store. Notarized apps have the gatekeeper ticket that allows them to run on Mac OS. The API accepts uploads of app, DMG, zip, and PKG files and returns a notarization status and any detected issues, used in Mac OS software distribution pipelines. Safari app extensions, cross-reference from developer tools, are also distributed as web-facing products. They're installed from the App Store and work within Safari's web browsing context, covered in detail in the Developer Tools section. Screen Time, Web Context, provides web-based APIs for sharing and managing web usage data, parental controls for web browsing history, and content filtering in the context of screen time, used in family safety apps that need to integrate with Screen Time's web content management. Siri Event Suggestions Markup is a schema for embedding structured reservation data, flight bookings, restaurant reservations, hotel stays, ticket purchases, in emails and web pages as JSON-LD or microdata. When the system detects this markup in an email or Safari page, it extracts the event and proactively suggests adding it to Calendar or following up with navigation. Siri and Calendar use this data to surface intelligent suggestions, used by travel, hospitality, and ticketing services that send confirmation emails. SK Ad Network for web ads, cross-reference from app services, enables privacy-preserving attribution of app installs from web advertising, covered in the App Services section. WebKit.js provides JavaScript APIs specific to the WebKit rendering engine, touch events, visual effects, overflow scrolling, text size adjustment, and other WebKit-specific extensions to the web platform. Most of these APIs have since been standardized across browsers, but the WebKit prefix forms remain documented for compatibility, used by web developers targeting Safari and WebKit. App Store receipts was the original mechanism for validating in-app purchases, a signed receipt file that your app could send to your server, which would forward it to Apple's receipt validation endpoint/verify receipt to confirm the purchase. This approach required server-side validation, was prone to replay attacks if not implemented carefully, and involved a binary ASN, one data format that was difficult to parse. Replacement. StoreKit 2 with its signed JWS transaction objects, which are cryptographically verifiable on-device and on your server without Apple's validation endpoint. StoreKit 2 is simpler, more secure, and eliminates the server-side validation round-trip for most cases. If you maintain an older app using receipt validation, the App Store Server API also offers modern server-side verification. OpenGL-ES was the cross-platform 3D graphics API for embedded systems, a subset of desktop OpenGL designed for mobile and embedded GPUs. Apple shipped OpenGL-ES on iOS from the very beginning and used it for many early game and graphics demos. It was deprecated in iOS 12, 2018. Replacement. Metal, Apple's own low-level GPU framework, which provides better performance, lower driver overhead, and deep integration with Apple's hardware and tool ecosystem. Any OpenGL-ES rendering code should be ported to Metal. The performance improvements are significant, and OpenGL-ES receives no new features. Tools like the Metal Developer Tools for Windows can assist with migration. SceneKit was Apple's high-level 3D scene graph framework, providing node-based scene construction, built-in physics, particle systems, and animation, all rendered via Metal. It was a significant improvement over raw Metal or OpenGL for non-game 3D content. SceneKit is deprecated in favor of RealityKit, which offers equivalent functionality with better ARKit integration, physically based rendering by default, an entity component system architecture that's more scalable for complex scenes, and ongoing investment from Apple. RealityKit is also the only 3D framework supported on Vision OS. Existing SceneKit apps continue to function, but new 3D development should use RealityKit.